Chapter 378:1 Have to ask my big sister uttered by Bexenville. CM Qin Wenjing glanced at him. He had a good impression of this acting dean. Last time, he had indeed severely punished Mr. Wei. Unfortunately, this person did not learn his lesson and insisted on making mistakes again and again. Hence, he nodded. In that case, I'll wait. He did not want to completely offend them. After all, even if he did not care, his students still had to care about their reputation. Continuing to be aggressive would make their future path difficult. Moreover, Qin Wenjing was secretly looking for an opportunity to stir up trouble and get the people from Dongyi Academy to come out and spar. On the other side, Master Wei's expression changed drastically. Dean Chui. Dean Chui looked at him coldly. You ruined the Academy's reputation because of your own selfishness. I will write a letter to Dean Jiang when I get back. During this period of time, you should reflect on your mistakes at home. Teacher Wei was recruited by Dean Jiang. Whether he could continue to stay in the academy still depended on Dean Jiang. After saying that, he looked at the other students who had come with Master Wei. You will be punished when you return to the academy. The students immediately lowered their heads. No one dared to speak. Teacher Wei was indignant. He wanted to say something, but he was pulled away by the people brought by Dean Chui. Dean Chui apologized to Qin Wenjing again. Then I'll leave first. If there's a chance, I'll ask Master Qin for guidance on paintings. Before he left, he took another look at Gu Yunshu's portrait. The people from Dongyi Academy left one after another. Everyone could not help but look at Master Qin and the other students. Gu Yunshu, in particular, became the center of attention. However, how could Qin Wenjing not know what they were thinking? At this moment, he also had a stomach full of questions. Therefore, he expressionlessly rejected the County Academy Overseer's invitation and brought the students upstairs to the private room. As soon as he entered, he restrained his thoughts and asked Yi Junkin about the specific situation of this incident. Then, he praised the little kids in satisfaction. Only then did she ask Gu Yunshu sternly, "Who taught you that painting?" Before Gu Yunshu could answer, the others were stunned. Yi Junkin asked in surprise, "Master, didn't you teach him?" Qin Wenjing almost hit him. "If I taught him, would I only teach him?" Everyone shrunk their necks. They only thought that perhaps Gu Yunshu was talented, so it was not impossible for the teacher to give him special treatment. After all, they had something they were good at. Sometimes, the teacher would give them pointers alone. For example, Lu Yi's chess skills were good. Qin Wenjing would play a few rounds with him after class and point out things to pay attention to. Therefore, they did not find it strange that Gu Yunshu could draw in a way that they did not know. Qin Wenjing glanced at them angrily and continued to ask Gu Yunshu, "When did you learn it?" Gu Yunshu thought for a moment. "I have to ask my elder sister if I can tell you." Qin Wenjing was speechless. "I'm your teacher, and you're still keeping it a secret from me?" But on second thought, he had first seen this kind of painting on the wanted poster. Even the prefecture magistrate had kept it a secret for the artist, so it was understandable that Gu Yunshu did not say anything. Unfortunately, Gu Yundong was not back yet. Just as he was thinking about it, there was a knock on the door. Qin Wenjing frowned. The students downstairs must have refused to give up and wanted to ask about the painting. Seriously, he hadn't even asked it yet. These people were so annoying. Qin Wenjing opened the door impatiently. "What do you want?" "I'm busy." Chapter 379. Siblings Meet uttered by Bexenville. CM The person standing at the door smiled. "Master Qin, long time no see." Qin Wenjing widened his eyes in shock. You Gu Yundong? You're back." When Gu Yunshu heard the familiar name, he hurried out of the private room. When he saw his eldest sister, his eyes lit up. Big sis, you're back. When did you come back? Why are you here? Did you see my competition just now? Wasn't it great? I listened to you well. When others came to bully me, I was imposing." He was overjoyed. After nagging for a while, his eyes turned slightly red again. "Big sister, I was obedient and took good care of little sister. Every day, she ate well, drank well, and wore warm clothes. She didn't fall sick. The teacher said that I've improved a lot in my studies. Aunt Ku also said that I'm like an older brother. I just missed you and mother and looked forward to your return every day. The child was extremely obedient. Gu Yundong's heart ached and softened. After not seeing each other for a few months, Gu Yundong realized that this kind of kinship was really heartwarming and unforgettable. She squatted down and gently stroked his head. Yes, I know. Yunshu is very obedient and sensible. You're a little man now. Gu Yunshu puffed out his chest and nodded vigorously. He grinned. After speaking to Gu Yundong, he looked at the person behind her and immediately threw himself into Madame Yang's arms. Mother! Shu is great. Madame Yang picked him up, her eyes red. Gu Yunshu smiled even more happily. However, when he looked around and did not see Gu Jiang, the smile on his lips could not help but droop. Sister, didn't you find father? Gu Yundong secretly took a deep breath. Father is not in Qingyuan Prefecture. But don't worry. Father is fine. He will be found. At the very least, everyone in Qingyuan Prefecture who saw Gu Jiang said that he had left the city gate safely. If he could survive the disaster and remained safe despite the chaos in Qingyuan Prefecture, he would definitely be fine in the future. When she saw that Gu Yunshu still looked a little sad, she quickly brought the timid and uneasy Bian Yuanji over. Look who this is. Bian Yuanji was very nervous. He had regarded Gu Yunshu as his best friend, but Yunshu seemed to have many classmates and friends now. They were all knowledgeable and capable friends. He suddenly felt inferior and helpless. Madame Yang had already put Gu Yunshu down. Hearing this, he could not help but take a few more glances at Bian Yuanji. After a while, his eyes lit up. He rushed over and grabbed his hand. Yuanji, right. Cousin Yuanji? Your cousin Yuanji? Shu, it's me. Bian Yuanji was very happy that he still remembered him. Gu Yundong smiled. Your cousin Yuanji will be staying with us from now on. He just came and is not familiar with Yongfu Village or Fengkai County. You can bring him around later. Gu Yunshu nodded vigorously. Leave it to me. He patted his chest and happily introduced Bian Yuanji to Lu Yi and the rest. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. With Yunshu around, Yuanzi's temperament should become more cheerful. But in the next moment, Gu Yundong suddenly felt someone staring at her. She suddenly turned around and met Qin Wenzheng's covetous gaze. Gu Yundong was speechless. Why did she feel that her life was in danger? Chapter 380. That painter was actually Gu Yundong? Uttered by Bexenville. CM Gu Yundong was not the only one who felt the danger. Even Shao Qingyuan could not help but frown and stand between them. Perhaps only Madame Gu knew what her husband's gaze meant. She touched her forehead and walked over to talk to Gu Yundong. When did Yundong come back? I just came back. I heard about what happened here, so I came over to take a look. I haven't returned home yet. Gu Yundong said as she walked in. However, Qin Wanzheng kept following her, looking like he wanted to say something but hesitated. Gu Yundong could not take it anymore. Master Qin, if you have something to say, just say it. Well, Qin Wanzheng was still a little embarrassed. After all, this matter was actually quite difficult. The prefecture magistrate was so tight-lipped that he refused to reveal a single word. Wasn't it making things difficult for Gu Yundong if he asked her? However, he could not help but ask in a low voice. Who taught Yunshu how to draw? Gu Yundong was stunned. She did not expect him to look at her with such a burning gaze just to ask this. The corners of her mouth twitched. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and asked, Do many people know how to draw like this now? Qin Wanzheng was a smart person and quickly reacted. He immediately nodded and said, Indeed, many people have already learned it. I know of 3 painters in the prefecture capital. They have been practicing since they saw the wanted poster back then. Therefore, you don't have to worry about exposing that painter and bringing him danger. You're painting too? Qin Wanzheng admitted straightforwardly. Yes, and my painting skills are better than those painters in the prefecture capital. It's just that I keep feeling that something is missing. When I saw Yun Shua's painting today, I suddenly felt enlightened. However, I can tell that he's still a beginner after all. He's still too young. Gu Yundong fell into deep thought. Since the painters in the prefectural city knew how to do it, even if their drawings were average, at least if she created a missing person notice, it would not seem unique. This time, she wouldn't have to specially draw other missing persons to hide her identity like she did in Qingyuan Prefecture. Later, she would draw portraits of eldest aunt and the others and paste them. The chances of finding them would more or less increase. Gu Yundong. Qin Wenzheng's angry voice suddenly sounded in her ears. She quickly turned her head and saw that his expression was dark and ugly. Gu Yundong blinked and asked softly, "Did you say anything just now?" Qin Wenjing sneered. Her brother was still a student under him. As a family member, she actually did not have any reverence for him. It was simply outrageous. It was Shao Qingyuan who said, "Master Qin asked you, who is the master who taught Yunshu to paint?" "It's me." There was nothing she couldn't say now. Qin Wenjing was so angry that he laughed. "You? You really take yourself seriously?" Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and smiled. Qin Wenjing frowned and took a few more glances at her. Thinking of Yunshu's technique, he hesitated for a long time before asking uncertainly, "Was it really you?" "If you don't believe me, ask Yunshu." Qin Wenjing gasped. The person he had tried so hard to find was actually Gu Yundong? This person was right in front of him, but he actually didn't know. Qin Wenjing rubbed his chest. He felt that he had to calm down. After a while, he raised his head again. His eyes were shining as he looked at Gu Yundong excitedly. "Tell me, what's so special about this painting method? What's the best way to start and what's the main point?" "Sure." Gu Yundong smiled. "But if you want me to teach you, there will be conditions." Chapter 381. Opening gifts. Qin Wenjing was speechless. He knew this girl had never known what it meant to be at a disadvantage. He was annoyed. "I'm your brother's teacher. Those are two different things. When you took Yunshu in as a student, didn't you take a fancy to his learning talent?" Gu Yundong said. "Friendship is friendship, and business is business." The corners of Qin Wenzheng's mouth twitched. He rubbed his temples and scolded Gu Yundong in his heart. However, he slowly calmed down. "All right, tell me." Gu Yundong was satisfied. She pointed at Bian Yuanji, who was holding Gu Yunshu's hand and chatting with others. "Take in my cousin too." Qin Wenjing frowned and turned to look at the timid and inferior child. He thought for a moment and said, "It's not impossible, but if he's stupid and can't keep up with his studies, then you can't blame me. He cannot read like Yunshu, right?" That was true. Yunshu had Gu Da Jiang. Although eldest Aunt Gu had also learned a few words when she was young, she could not learn a lot in that environment. Moreover, she had forgotten most of it. After Bian Yuanji was born, eldest Aunt Gu had probably only taught him less than 10 words. He did not have a foundation like Yunshu's, but Gu Yundong still felt that she should send him to school. Now that the conditions allowed it, reading and literacy were the most basic things for her. "Just teach him, Master Qin. It's not like I want him to take the high scholar examination and return as an honorable scholar. Studying can make people wise. It's better than knowing nothing." There was a rare hint of praise in Qin Wenzheng's eyes when he looked at her. There were too few people in this world who had such thoughts. For example, which of these little kids in front of him didn't study for the imperial examination? When it came to Gu Yundong, she really studied for the sake of studying. "All right, since we've made a deal, you can tell me about the problem with the painting, right?" Madame Gu couldn't stand it anymore and pulled him back. "Yundong has just returned to Fengkai County and hasn't even come home yet, but you're already asking her all sorts of questions. At least let her go home to see her family. We can talk about other things after resting." Only then did Qin Wenjing react. He coughed lightly and said, "All right, I don't mind waiting 2 more days anyway. The competition here has ended. Take Yunshu home first. Then we'll leave." Gu Yundong also wanted to go home, so she called out to Yunshu. The latter immediately bade farewell to his friends and held Bian Yuanzi's hand. From the beginning to the end, he had never let go of his hand. Their palms were sweaty. However, Bian Yuanji was very happy. The uneasiness of meeting a friend he had not seen in a long time in a strange place seemed to have been soothed. Shan Sitian, Cat and the rest were still in their original room. When Gu Yundong returned, he happened to see Lu Wei asking a few people about what he had seen and heard along the way. At the same time, he wanted to find out what gifts Gu Yundong and the rest had prepared for him. Gu Yundong was speechless. "Your brother is next door. Why don't you go and comfort him? Are you his elder brother?" She ignored Lu Wei and introduced the others to Yun Shu. Then, under his curious gaze, she asked Mao to take a box from the carriage and handed it to Lu Wei. Then, she left him behind and the group returned to Yongfu village happily. Lu Wei held the gift box and didn't care if they left or not. He sat in the private room and opened it happily. Chapter 382. The villagers pointing at them. However, in the next moment, the corners of Lu Wei's mouth drooped. His fingers trembled as he took out the thing in the box. Dried bamboo shoots? This was the gift she had given him? Lu Wei was so angry that he wanted to die. He angrily stuffed the bamboo shoots back into his pocket, picked up the box, and was about to smash it on the ground. After thinking about it, he was indignant. He closed the box and stuffed it into Lu Wei's hands. Take it back to the residence. Eat them tonight and cook them all. Let my father and the others have a taste. Let them feel Gu Yundong's sincerity. Her sincerity. Humph, to think that his father was full of praise for this person. Look, the capable young lady he mentioned was so bad at conducting herself. However, when everyone in the Lu family ate the crispy dried bamboo shoots that night, coupled with the secret seasoning that was sent over along with the dried bamboo shoots, they truly felt Gu Yundong's sincerity. Old Master Lu even said, I heard that the Feng County in the Yongning Prefecture produces spring bamboo shoots. In the past, someone sent me local dried bamboo shoots, but they didn't taste as fresh and tender as this. Especially since the Yongning Prefecture has just experienced a disaster, it's not easy to find such good dried bamboo shoots. That girl, Yundong, is very considerate. Lu Wei did not want to say anything. He would eat first as a form of respect. Tomorrow, he would go to Yongfu village to visit Gu Yundong and ask for more. Gu Yundong did not know that this person had previously despised the thing she had given him, and now he wanted to take advantage of her again. After giving the gift to him, she got into the carriage and returned to Yongfu village without stopping. Unexpectedly, just as they arrived at the village entrance, they saw a few familiar figures standing there, shaking their heads in anticipation. The carriage stopped and she quickly got out. She immediately saw a figure running over happily and hugging her thigh. Big sister, you're back. Gu Yundong picked the little girl up. Why are you standing here? The little girl rubbed her head against Gu Yundong's neck. Gu Yundong's heart softened when he saw how cute she was. Kiki missed eldest sister and mother. Even the food didn't taste good. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. If it could make a foodie girl feel that eating was not good, then this lovesickness was quite serious. Now that we're back, Kiki has to eat more. Yes, I'll have 2 big bowls tonight. She was excited and gestured with her hands to show how big the 2 big bowls would be. Aunt Ku also walked forward and sized Gu Yundong up. She actually felt that Gu Yundong had grown taller. She explained, someone said that he saw you guys coming back, but you turned around and left as soon as you entered the village. Later on, Luan called young Master Lu away. I thought that something might have delayed you in the county city and you would come back later. When Gu Yundong heard this, she understood that Luan did not report to the Gu family. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but she smiled and explained. Madame Yang also came forward and happily carried Gu Yunka over. The young lady was even happier. She stayed in Madame Yang's arms and spoke to Gu Yundong. Eldest sister, I just waited for a while. That's true. She even prepared something for you to welcome you home, Aunt Ku added. The little girl immediately became shy and buried her head in Madame Yang's arms like a little quail. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. She did not get into the carriage and simply walked as she spoke. Along the way, she bumped into the villagers of Yongfu village. Some of them greeted her warmly, but there were also some who pointed at her, as if they did not want to get involved with her. Chapter 383. You eloped. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. After experiencing such treatment for the 3rd time, she could not help but look at Aunt Ku. Aunt Ku snorted. Ignore them. They're just a bunch of gossipy old women who have nothing better to do. Gu Yundong found it funny. She was already gone. How could there still be her gossips in this village? What's going on? Aunt Ku originally wanted to tell her when they got home. But since she had asked, she did not hide it from her. I wonder who spread the news that you eloped with Shao Qingyuan. Ha! Elope? Gu Yundong's mind was filled with question marks. She could not help but turn to look at Shao Qingyuan. Then, she remembered that Shao Qingyuan had been pulled away by Qin Wenjing before leaving the restaurant. He said that he had something to tell him. She didn't know what Qin Wenjing was up to, and why he was being so mysterious. Aunt Ke sneered. You had already been away from the village for 2 months before Shao Qingyuan left. How can he get involved with you? Besides, why do the two of you have to elope? You have a house, land, and family here. If you want to be together, you can find someone to propose marriage, and no one will object. Is there a need to elope? Gu Yundong felt that what Aunt Ke said made sense. Perfect. I reckon he'll come to the house to propose a marriage in a few days after he goes back. Aunt Ke suddenly paused and looked at her in disbelief. Are you serious? He convinced you just like that? You agreed. You're too unreserved. I've been reserved. It was 15 minutes. Aunt Ke faked a smile and looked at her as if she expected better from her. Although she knew that with Shao Qingyuan's attitude, Gu Yundong would definitely not be able to escape from him, but she should at least struggle for a year or two. She had really overestimated her. She had given herself away after going out for a while. Aunt Ke was a little heartbroken, but when it came to serious matters, she still frowned. Marriage proposal at this time? I'm afraid the rumors will become more and more intense. Let them say what they want. Anyway, my workshop is going to recruit people again. Whoever talks behind our backs can forget about coming in. I won't indulge them. Most people in Yongfu village were still friendly, but no matter where, there would always be some idle and talkative people who insisted on coming out to make their presence known. Aunt Ke smiled. That's true. Don't worry. I've already memorized all the people who badmouthed you. I'll tell you later. Gu Yundong looked at her and smiled. There was no need to say anything. Tong Shui Tao, who had heard everything from the beginning to the end, could not help but feel a little excited. Miss was indeed that Mississippi. She bore grudges. Now that she knew the reason, Gu Yundong no longer paid attention to those strange gazes. The group of people walked majestically towards the foot of the mountain. Gu Yundong realized that there had been a lot of changes along the way. At the very least, some of the villagers' appearances were very different. There were also a few families whose houses had been renovated or rebuilt. It gave her a momentary illusion that she had not been back for a long time. Aunt Ke explained, the conditions of the few families that work in your workshop have improved. At the very least, they can eat well and dress well when they take back the salary for the past few months. There are also those who work for Feng Danning. Because of your house as a signboard, they have been working non-stop for the past few months. Many people have been looking for them. Look, Feng Danning's family has already built a few more rooms. There are also some small workers under him who have also repaired the house. What Aunt Ke did not say was that when village chief Chen Liang saw that the villagers' lives had improved so much, he was really grateful to Gu Yundong. He smiled every day. Gu Yundong had a smile on her face, and she was also very happy. As they spoke, they arrived at the entrance of the house. However, Gu Yundong suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at the house in front of her in a daze. Chapter 384. Shao Qingyuan's thoughts. Gu Yundong looked to the left and then to the right. Her mouth was slightly agape and she did not know where to go. Aunt Ke lowered her head and smiled. She had deliberately not said anything just now. Gu Yundong asked, what happened? Why were there two identical houses? Brother Shao's house. Gu Yunke pointed to the house on the right and happily explained to Gu Yundong. Shao Qingyuan's house? Aunt Ke finally had enough of laughing. She said softly, after you left, Shao Qingyuan bought the land behind his house. Then, he asked Feng Danning to build a green brick-tiled house. It's no different from your house. Gu Yundong was speechless. Shao Qingyuan was really making a big deal in silence. The two of them had been together for so long along the way, but he actually held back and did not mention it. Aunt Ke finally understood Shao Qingyuan's thoughts. Anyway, this house was designed by Gu Yundong, so she definitely liked it. He could just build the same one so that she wouldn't dislike it. However, his house was indeed eye-catching. The Li family had come to the vicinity more than once. This family was really interesting. When Shao Qingyuan was around, they didn't even dare to approach it. After he left, they looked envious and wanted to move in. They even went to look for Chen Liang. Unexpectedly, Lu Wei came over. He directly dragged his luggage and moved in. It was precisely because of this new house that he stayed in Yongfu village for more than half a month every month. Although the Li family coveted this house, they didn't dare to offend Lu Wei. They had tried to come over to talk to him several times, but were chased away by Lu Wei's servant, Lu En. Now that Shao Qingyuan was back, they could forget about it. Gu Yundong took a few more glances at Shao Qingyuan's house and found it rather interesting. They looked exactly the same on the outside, but she did not know what was inside. She thought about it as she walked through the front door. It was only at this moment, standing in the familiar front yard, that she suddenly felt her heart calm down. She was back. This was her home, a place where she could relax completely. She turned around and looked at the Tong family. It's been hard on you all during this period of time. The Tong family shook their heads in unison. It's not hard. It's good that Madam and Miss are back. The hot soup and water have been prepared. Miss, do you want to rest for a while? It was a little late now. Gu Yundong had traveled a long way and indeed wanted to take a hot shower to relax. All right. Gu Yundong nodded and introduced Shen Sitian and the rest. Miss Shen will stay at our house first. Mao and the others will stay at Brother Shao's house. If Shao Qingyuan still lived in his old house, Gu Yundong would not let them go. But his house was so big now. It was too empty and lonely for Shao Qingyuan to live alone. Bian Yuanji and Yunshu shared a room. Previously, Yunshu had stayed with Yang Kiki. Now that Yuanji was here, he had a companion. The two little fellows had already discussed it on the way. Bian Yuanji was originally a little nervous, but when he heard that he could be with Yunshu, he hurriedly nodded and agreed. On the other hand, Gu Yunka took a few more glances at Bian Yuanji. She had not noticed earlier, but now she realized that her brother had been holding hands with a little brother. The little girl pouted. In the past, every time her brother came back, he would call her sister loudly and pat her head. Not today. Angry. But when she saw Gu Yundong, she became happy again. All right, since she didn't talk to her brother immediately today, they were even. She wasn't angry anymore. After mentally preparing herself, the little girl walked to Bian Yuanji and asked, "Who are you?" Chapter 385. Not Brainy. Bian Yuanji didn't know how to respond to the obedient and soft little girl. He stammered, My name is Bian Yuanji. I'm your cousin's cousin. It was so confusing. The little girl blinked blankly, indicating that she did not understand. Gu Yunshu explained, "This is cousin Yuanji, our eldest aunt's son. We met last year. Don't you remember?" "I still remember." Of course, the young lady did not remember. Last year, she was still lying in bed and sleeping most of the time. But her brother remembered. The young lady was heartbroken. "What should I do? I forgot. My brain isn't working well." Pfft. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh out loud. The others couldn't help but laugh and turn their heads to look elsewhere. However, Gu Yunshu patted her head in all seriousness. "It's all right. I'll take you to see a doctor. Even if I have to go bankrupt, I'll cure you." Everyone was speechless. Aunt Ku could not stand it anymore and chased Gu Yunshu away. "Go, go, go. Don't lead your younger sister astray. Kiki is a child. It's normal for her to be unable to recognize someone after not seeing them for a year." "Is that so?" Gu Yunshu turned to look at eldest sister. Gu Yundong nodded and said to the young lady, "Then can you get to know your cousin Yuanji again now?" "Okay." Gu Yunka nodded obediently and walked to Bian Yuanji again. She widened her eyes and looked at him carefully, as if she would only stop if she remembered him. Gu Yundong did not care and let the three children play. She rubbed her neck and went into her room to take a shower. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, she saw that the house was filled with all kinds of wild flowers. Aunt Ku had been following behind her. She leaned against the doorframe and said leisurely, "Kiki picked these. She talks about you every day. After spring, there are flowers at the foot of the mountain behind. She got Zhang Yu to lead her to pick them. When Zhang Yu is not free, she will look for Lu En. After she picks them, she will put some in her room and some in your room too. She wouldn't throw them away even when the flowers have withered. Shed take them to the backyard and bury them obediently in the soil. Gu Yundong's heart softened when she saw the room filled with all kinds of colors. Except, this attracts bugs, right? Aunt Ke really did not want to talk to her. She turned around and left. Gu Yundong, on the other hand, entered the room with a smile. She took out the things that had been stuck to the doorframe, the vases, the cups, the cabinets, the pillars, and the curtains, and placed them all on the table. She wondered if she should find a female teacher to teach this pretentious young lady how to arrange flowers. However, Yunku was a little too young now. It seemed to be too early. She would see about it next year. Gu Yundong took a comfortable shower. When she came out, she saw Madame Yang, Shen Sitian, and the others sitting there refreshed. Aunt Ku placed a plate of date cakes in front of Gu Yundong. Kiki made this. Gu Yundong was shocked. She looked at Gu Yunka in shock. The young lady covered her face and said shyly, "No, Aunt did it." Aunt Ku said, "When she heard that you guys were back, she wanted to go to the village entrance to wait. I thought about how long we would have to wait, so I simply told her to make some delicious food to welcome you guys. The date cakes were made by the two of us." She said meaningfully, although Kiki is young, her culinary talent is already very obvious. "Try it." Gu Yundong was stunned. The young lady loved to eat, so she was talented in cooking? So this was what she had prepared for her. Chapter 386. The things in the village. She tasted it and smiled when she met Gu Young's expectant gaze. "It's delicious." The little girl shyly pounced into her arms again and gave Madame Yang a date cake. Everyone at the table laughed. It was at this moment that Tong Shui Tao walked in with a basket of fresh vegetables. Auntie Dong came just now. She knew that Madame and young Miss were back and wanted to come and visit. However, seeing that it was already late, she was afraid of disturbing young Miss' rest, so she didn't come in. Instead, she stuffed this basket of vegetables over. Although the Gu family also had a backyard, it was used to refine white sugar. Even if they planted vegetables, they could only open up a small piece of land in a small corner. Aunt Ku had only planted a little. Dong Xiaolan was still working in the workshop and had just returned. She was naturally very happy to hear that Gu Yundong had returned home. Speaking of her, Gu Yundong could not help but think of Zhang Hu. He asked Tong Shui Tao, "How's Uncle Xing's leg?" "I'm much better. He can already walk on my crutches. The doctor said that he'll recover soon. He just has to be careful not to bump into anything or freeze." "That's good." Uncle Zheng's leg had recovered, and the Zheng family's life would slowly improve in the future. Aunt Ke told her about what had happened in the village after she left. After Feng Danning finished building Shao Qingyuan's house, he started building the workshop. "It's almost done now. I'll go take a look tomorrow and see what's not good. They might be able to change it after thinking about it." The village chief sister-in-law, surnamed Feng. "I heard that you rented her house for a period of time in the past? 2 months ago, the daughter got married and moved into town. It seems that her mother followed her. How can a married daughter bring her mother along? She's really reckless." "Ahem," Tong Shui Tao reminded her. "Aunt, her mother rented another house in town and didn't live in the Wu family." "That's still outrageous." Aunt Ke snorted coldly. She had asked around and found out that this mother-daughter pair had given Yundong's family a hard time. It was as if it was so amazing to have a dilapidated house. They even despised Gu Yundong and chased her out after she stayed for a few days. Tong Shui Tao stopped talking. Aunt Ke continued, "I heard that their house is now rented to another person, a man from town. I don't know what he's doing in the village. It's not easy to find out. Also, many people in the village are planting sugarcane now. I heard that when you collected sugarcane last year, you purchased from all the families in the nearby village. Those people earned money, so the villagers were a little envious. They asked Chen Liang to ask Shao Qingyuan if he would purchase their sugarcane if they planted it in the future. Shao Qingyuan said that as long as the sugarcane is good, well, accept it. However, everyone doesn't dare to plant too much. Almost every family has some, but not a lot. By the way, a few days ago, many people came to inquire about when your workshop would be recruiting again. Not only did the villagers came to ask, but people from the neighboring villages also came to ask. Aunt Ku rambled on for a while, but Gu Yundong had just returned. She could talk about the rest another day. Seeing that it was getting late, she asked the Tong family to serve the meal first. Just as the dishes were served, Shao Qingyuan returned. He should have already returned home. He came over after changing his clothes, and his hair was still a little wet. Yundong was very curious. After dinner, she asked him impatiently, "Why did Mr. Chen look for you?" Chapter 387. Seems to have flirted with Shao Qingyuan. Shao Qingyuan was actually also puzzled. When there were only the two of them, he said, "Master Chen asked me about the situation deep in the mountains." The situation deep in the mountains? Why was Qin Wenjing asking this? He wasn't going into the mountains, right? Even if he did, with his weak scholarly body, it wouldn't be enough. That's it. Shao Qingyuan nodded. He said that he likes to eat wild animals and wants to hunt by himself when he has the chance. The corners of Yundong's mouth twitched. Qin Wenjing was too unrealistic. He actually wanted to challenge such a difficult task. However, if it was difficult for him, what about her? Let's go deep into the mountains sometime. Yundong wanted to see if she could find Bai Musi. There were many good things in the mountains. Perhaps she could find something? Shao Qingyuan frowned. You're going too? Of course. No, it's too dangerous. Don't I have you? He could even bring Lu Wei out safely. She should at least be more reliable and smarter than Lu Wei, right? Shao Qingyuan was speechless. He lowered his head slightly. After a while, the corners of his mouth curled up for a moment. He said in a low voice, "Yes." Yundong blinked and finally reacted. Could it be that she had accidentally flirted with him just now? In terms of relationships, she was still very inexperienced. At this moment, she was a little embarrassed. She cleared her throat and quickly changed the subject. "By the way, why did you build a house just like mine? Don't you like houses like this? It'll be your home in the future anyway." Yundong felt that he was flirting with her too, but her heart was very warm. The corners of her lips curled up as she looked at Shao Qingyuan. "Actually, you can just build the house the way you think. There's no need to accommodate me." Shao Qingyuan frowned and thought for a moment before saying, "I don't have any thoughts. Your thoughts will be mine in the future." "You make it sound nice." "It's true." Shao Qingyuan's expression was exceptionally sincere. Yundong suddenly recalled the first time she met him. At that time, she had seen his indifferent eyes, as if he did not care about anything. Later on, when they met again in Yongfu village, he didn't seem to care about anything. He clearly had money on him, but his house was still the old house. He only had 2 sets of clothes, and the food he ate was extremely rough. He did not look like he was living a life at all. Now it was really different. He had changed a lot. She did not know if it was because of her that he had become warm. But Yundong was happy with this change. At this thought, Yundong looked up and smiled at him. "I believe you." The corners of Shao Qingyuan's mouth curled up. His hand moved slightly, but he couldn't help but step forward and hold her small hand, gently rubbing it twice. Yundong felt as if she had been electrocuted. She shuddered and coughed lightly. In the end, she did not pull it out. She only asked him in a low voice, "What are you doing tomorrow?" "I want to go to the county city to take a look. The bodyguards of the Jiang family's agency are all quite skilled. I want to borrow someone from them to teach a Mao and the others some martial arts." As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before saying, "I'll come back in a few days to propose marriage." He had asked Auntie Dong and found out that there were many things to prepare for the marriage proposal. The more he valued the woman, the more he could not be careless. He was already thinking about what he should prepare to show his respect. Other than finding an escort tomorrow, the most important thing was to buy something for marriage. Therefore, at dawn the next day, Shao Qingyuan rode his horse and left Yongfu village. Yundong also woke up early. After freshening up and eating breakfast, he planned to go to the workshop to take a look. Unexpectedly, a carriage stopped outside the door. Chapter 388. Going back on your words. Yundong paused. The curtain of the carriage was lifted, revealing Qin Wenzheng's excited face. Didn't he say that he would come back in a few days? It had only been one night. As a teacher, How could he go back on his word? Gu Yundong's condemning gaze landed on him. After Qin Wenjing got out of the carriage, he immediately said, "I'm here to bring the new student to school. I also came to ask you a few questions by the way." Gu Yundong chuckled. Why didn't he find a more convincing excuse? Isn't it a holiday today? Qin Wenjing did not like Gu Yundong. Really, she did not know anything about the ways of the world. Must she say everything out aloud? This made him look like he was not very smart. Back then, he was the popular top scholar in the capital. Fortunately, Gu Yunshu and Bian Yuanji quickly ran out. They respected their teacher, Qin Wenjing. They took him inside in awe. Bian Yuanji had heard from his cousin last night that she wanted him to study in school. He was so excited that he didn't sleep for half the night. He had been in the Gu family for nearly half a year, so he clearly understood what it meant to live under someone else's roof. Even though his cousin said that he would be her family from now on, he still had a line in his heart. He knew that he could not be willful and could not take all the benefits for granted. He had already thought it through. He would do more work at home in the future. In any case, he was already familiar with it. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived in Fengjiang County and before he even entered the house, his cousin had already found a teacher for him. He also knew from Ah Shu how strict this teacher's standard for students was. Even if one had money, one might not be able to become his student. Many years ago, Teacher Qin was even a top scholar. In the past, even when he saw elementary scholar in his hometown, it was already very impressive. Not only did his cousin ask him to read and write, but she also spent so much effort to find such a good teacher. The house was good too. The blanket was warm. After Ah Shu fell asleep last night, he had actually cried secretly. He felt that the pain he had suffered previously was no longer important. Bian Yuanji was still a little nervous when he saw Master Qin. Fortunately, Qin Wenjing was quite patient with his students. He asked a few gentle questions and learned the general situation. He asked him to go to school with Gu Yunshu tomorrow. Knowing that he felt a little inferior and uneasy, the teacher even praised him. Sure enough, Bian Yuanji immediately smiled shyly and foolishly before he was pulled away by Gu Yunshu. When Qin Wenjing saw them leave, he immediately went to look for Gu Yundong. Come on, tell me how to get started with the new painting method. Were you really the one who drew the wanted poster in the prefecture capital? How long have you taught Yunshu? Why do I feel that something is wrong when I draw it? Actually, Gu Yundong had wanted to leave quietly when he was talking to Yunshu and Yuanji. She had just returned to the village and had a lot of things to do. However, Qin Wenjing was eyeing her covetously. From time to time, he would look at her. As long as she showed signs of leaving, he would immediately stand up and follow her. Gu Yundong could only wait for him to finish speaking to Bian Yuanji. Regarding Qin Wenjing's question, Gu Yundong did not intend to answer him in detail. She simply took out a charcoal pencil and paper and started drawing in front of him. She would draw the simple ones first, such as the square box in front of her, and then draw people. Qin Wenjing was known as a young genius. He was already a top scholar at a young age. It was better to show him in detail. Gu Yundong felt that he would be able to understand it better this way. Chapter 389. What about your father? Udat Beisenvel. As expected, after 2 drawings, Qin Wenjing's eyes began to light up. Then he started to draw. He seemed to have found the feeling. After drawing, he looked at it carefully for a moment. Then he looked up and said, "Thank you. I'll go back and think about it. If there's anything I don't understand, I'll come and ask you." You really don't hold back. You said it. A deal is a deal. I don't have to be polite. Gu Yundong choked. Seeing that he had rolled up the drawing paper and was about to leave, she suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "Wait for me for a while." As she spoke, she lowered her head and quickly focused on drawing a few portraits. It was a few unfamiliar faces. Qin Wenjing looked at her in confusion. Gu Yundong handed him the 3 drawings. You said that several people in the prefectural city have already learned this drawing method, so I don't have to worry about being exposed. This is my aunt, her husband, and 4th uncle. I know that you have connections in the prefectural city, so I would like to trouble you to paste them to the eye-catching place at the city gate. Qin Wenjing did not refuse. After taking a look, He accepted them. What about your father? At the mention of Gu Dajiang, Gu Yundong was still a little hesitant. After some thought, she told Qin Wenjing what she had heard in Qingyuan Prefecture. Qin Wenjing frowned slightly when he heard this. After pondering for a moment he said, "Your concerns are right. I didn't expect your father to be involved in the capture of the bandits. If his portrait is used by the bandits to find him, not only will we not be able to find your father, but we will also harm him." As he spoke, he hesitated for a moment before saying, "Since both you and your father are related to this matter, I won't hide it from you. There's indeed someone behind the bandit leader that was captured in the Xuanhe Prefecture that day. Furthermore, they might be in the Xuanhe Prefecture. After those bandits harmed the Qingyuan Prefecture, he didn't escape elsewhere. Instead, he came to the Xuanhe Prefecture." Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before rejoicing. Previously, she had thought that the matter was not as serious as she had imagined. After all, both she and Gu Dajiang were insignificant people. Even if they played a certain role in capturing bandits, those bandits might not remember small fries like them. Now that she heard Qin Wenjing say it so seriously, she thought that it was right to take away the missing person notices when she left the Qingyuan Prefecture. "Qin Wenjing, I'll get someone to post these 3 portraits to the prefectural city. You can also draw 2 portraits of Gu Dajiang for me. I'll get someone to secretly keep an eye on them without exposing the portraits." Gu Yundong nodded and lowered his head to continue drawing. Qin Wenjing said, "Moreover, according to you, the commander your father met back then was Commander Zhao from the Xuanhe Prefecture. Ever since he contributed to pacifying the chaos, he has already gone to the capital. I'll write a letter and ask my friends in the capital to ask Commander Zhao if there's any news of your father." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up and she could not help but stop drawing. "Thank you. There's no need. Actually, you said that your father only left Qingyuan Prefecture half a month after quelling the chaos. He must have confirmed that you were not there and even learned about your whereabouts. There are only 2 places he can go. One is Gu Village, and the other is Xuanhe Prefecture." Gu Yundong thought so too. If her father was in Xuanhe Prefecture, using Qin Wenjing's help would naturally be better than finding a needle in a haystack. She finished drawing the portraits and handed them to Qin Wenjing. Before he left, she couldn't help but ask. Chapter 390. Both of you are annoying Udat by Zenvel. You stayed in Fengkai County and didn't return to the capital because they haven't caught the person behind the bandit? Gu Yundong had long found it strange. It had been more than half a year since the new emperor ascended the throne. Those who should be promoted had been promoted and those who should be transferred back to the capital had been transferred back. However, Qin Wenjing, the trusted aide of the new emperor, had been staying in Fengkai County as a school teacher. No matter how she thought about it, it was wrong. Qin Wenjing suddenly looked up and glared at her with his sharp eyes. He did not admit or deny it. He only lowered his voice and warned, "Don't get involved in these things." Gu Yundong immediately made an oath. "Of course I won't get involved. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to earn some money last time, I wouldn't even draw the wanted posters. I'm regretting it now. I still have a family to take care of. Don't look for me when you fight and kill." What a coward. Of course. She still looked very proud. Qin Wenjing had never seen such a shameless woman. He was so angry that he almost wanted to throw the paintings in his hand back to her. However, Gu Yundong was not done yet. She said seriously, "As for you, my younger brother and cousin are still studying in your school. Don't implicate them." She was considering whether to change schools. Qin Wenjing was almost angered to death by her. "I have a wife and daughter to take care of myself. I won't do anything dangerous." "That's good." Qin Wenjing turned around and left. Gu Yunshu was clearly righteous. Why was his sister like this? By the way, Gu Yunshu kept saying that he wanted to learn from his elder sister. It seemed that Qin Wenjing had to think of a way to correct his thoughts in the future. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and finally left. She could finally go out. However, Gu Yundong, who had only taken a few steps out of the door, was shocked by the carriage that almost hit her. She took a few steps back. Lu Wei was here. Why were all of them like this? Didn't they just meet yesterday? Lu Wei jumped down from the carriage in high spirits. "Yundong, I'm here to check on the workshop. You don't know, But I've been watching over the workshop while you and Shao Qingyuan were away. This has already become a habit. I feel uncomfortable if I don't come." He even stretched his arms and looked very dedicated. "I thought that since this workshop is going to stop running in a few days, I might as well end it well. At the same time, I can tell you about the situation in the workshop during this period of time. Alright, when I go back later, give me 2 handfuls of dried bamboo shoots you brought back from Yongning Prefecture. My father seems to like them." He said the last sentence very casually, but it was the main point. How could Gu Yundong not understand? She pretended not to know. "Alright, then go to the workshop." After saying that, she didn't entertain him anymore and turned around to walk in another direction. Lu Wei was stunned and hurriedly followed. "Where are you going?" "I'll go to the newly built workshop to take a look." It was close, and she wanted to see the progress first. Feng Danning was at the new workshop and was instructing people to work. When he saw Gu Yundong coming over, a smile bloomed on his face as he strode over. "I heard that you were back yesterday. I wanted to go over and take a look. My wife said that you must be very tired and have a lot of things to do, so we should talk about it later. I didn't expect you to come here first." Gu Yundong looked up. "Shall I go in and take a look?" "Sure, it's almost done." Just as Feng Danning was about to bring her inside, she saw someone rushing over from afar. "Brother Feng, Brother Feng." Chapter 391. My surname is Jiang Znvel. CM The person was a little anxious and seemed to be unfamiliar with the road here. He stumbled. When he was in front of them, he wiped his sweat and exhaled. "Brother Feng, the house I live in." Halfway through his sentence, he noticed Gu Yundong standing at the side. He was stunned for a moment. He thought about it and asked uncertainly, "You are Lady Gu, right?" Gu Yundong nodded. "You are." She was very sure that she had never seen this person before. He did not look like a villager from Yongfu village. That person smiled and said, "My surname is Jiang. My family is in town. Not long ago, I rented the Chen family's house in Yongfu village." Gu Yundong remembered that Aunt Ko had mentioned last night that Chen Yulan was married and her mother had moved to town. Naturally, their house had been vacated. In the end, someone from town came to Yongfu village and rented the house. So this was it. This person looked to be in his 40s, but he seemed refined and even had a beard. He looked out of place in Yongfu village. When he stood with Feng Danning, he looked more like a boss or a long-term worker. Knowing who he was, Gu Yundong nodded slightly. On the other hand, Feng Danning asked, "Brother Jiang, why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Jiang Yongkang suddenly slapped his leg. "I almost forgot. I don't know why, but there's a big hole in the roof of the house I live in, so I want to trouble Brother Feng to help me take a look and repair it." Feng Danning nodded. "Alright, I'll go over and take a look at noon." He was still helping the Gu family build the house. If he had to do other work, he would naturally have to make use of his rest time. "Thank you very much. I'll go back first." Jiang Yongkang cupped his hands gratefully. Then, he nodded and smiled at Gu Yundong before turning to leave. Feng Danning continued to lead Gu Yundong into the workshop. Gu Yundong had already drawn the composition of the workshop before she left, so she was very clear about the structure inside. The workshop was very big, just like a modern factory. It was also divided into several smaller workshops, and each workshop had a room that looked like an office. As it was used to make food, Gu Yundong attached great importance to hygiene, so the floor was paved with square bricks to prevent dust from flying everywhere. There was a row of rooms behind the workshop. After the official recruitment, there would definitely be someone on duty here, so the dormitory was needed. In the future, when there were more workers, those whose families were far away could also stay here. The doors and windows of the workshop had been specially made to double the size, in case the light was dim and they could not see clearly. Gu Yundong looked around. Other than some details that had been modified according to the local conditions, everything had been built according to the diagram she had drawn. Feng Danning was excited as he introduced them to her. He had been working non-stop for the past few months. Although he was busy, he looked different. Now that the workshop could be used soon, he would probably be even busier. But he was happy and grateful to Gu Yundong. After Gu Yundong was done, she was satisfied. She said to Feng Danning, "Uncle Feng, it's been hard on you during this period of time. The workshop is very good and sturdy. It seems that after a while, the workshop will be able to start running." Feng Danning laughed out loud. "As long as you're satisfied." The two of them walked out of the door as they spoke. Thinking of Jiang Yongkang, Gu Yundong could not help but ask, "Since he's from town, why did he come to our village for no reason?" Chapter 392. Meeting my future sister-in-law's Nvel. It seemed that Feng Danning and Jiang Yongkang had interacted a few times and knew the inside story. When he heard this, he smiled and said, "Brother Jiang was sick previously. It's especially easy for him to wake up at night. He can't sleep well. The doctor said that the most important thing for him is to rest well. He can't sleep for more than 4 hours a day. Isn't his condition worse?" "But there's nothing he can do." Feng Danning shook his head and sighed. He just had a grandson a few days ago. Doesn't a newborn child cry hard in the middle of the night? Seeing that his complexion is getting worse and worse, the son wanted to bring his wife and children out to rent a house to live in. Brother Jiang didn't agree and said that the houses in town are very expensive now. He simply ran to the village here to find a house to live in. Gu Yundong understood. It just so happened that Madame Feng and her daughter had vacated the house. Yongfu village was not far from town, so it was just right. Feng Danning sighed. "Speaking of which, our village is really blessed now, especially after you came. Look at this village. Many people's lives have improved." Brother Jiang looked so haggard when he first came. He's in good spirits now, right? He's already fine, but he couldn't bear to leave. He said that he wanted to stay for a while longer. Gu Yundong smiled. As they talked, she had already returned to the Gu house. After offering Feng Danning's salary, she left him to do his own work. It was already lunchtime, so Gu Yundong decided to visit the workshop in the afternoon. She didn't know when Lu Wei had returned. At this moment, he was standing at the side and talking to Aunt Ku about making dried bamboo shoots for lunch. Gu Yundong's forehead could not help but twitch. This guy was really promising. However, after he finished eating, he took 2 large bundles of bamboo shoots back. In the afternoon, Gu Yundong went to the village chief's house. During her absence, Chen Liang had been taking care of their family, so she naturally had to thank him. Madame Zhou held her hand and chatted with her for a long time. Gu Yundong saw that she seemed a little haggard. Although she was smiling, she seemed a little distracted. Gu Yundong did not disturb her further. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she left. When she passed by the Shi family, she saw that their door was open. She knocked and entered. He Yi was the only one in the Shi family. When she saw her enter, she quickly stood up and made her some sugar water. "Miss, take a seat first. Dashan is in the field. I'll go find him." "No need." Gu Yundong stopped her. "I saw that the door was open, so I came in to take a look. I also wanted to ask if there were any problems with the sugarcane field." Yes, life was better now. Her face was rosy and she had gained some weight. However, she was still timid. When she saw Gu Yundong, she was still a little uneasy. "No problem. That piece of land is good. The sugarcane has been planted. It's growing well now. All right, there's also the 50 acres of orchard. Our Dashan and Gaoxing's father have planted the fruit trees. Do you want to take a look?" Gu Yundong shook her head. "Let's go another day." "That's fine too. Dashan also said that Miss will definitely have more fields in the future. Whenever he's free these days, he helps you look for good ones. There are a few good ones. Miss, you're back. You can go and take a look later." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes." He also smiled. At this moment, Lan Hua returned. Before she entered, she said, "Mother, I went to take a look. It's not bad." When she entered the house and saw Gu Yundong sitting there, she immediately felt a little embarrassed. "Sister Gu, you're here? You look quite happy. What did you see?" Lan Hua chuckled. "I went to see my future sister-in-law." Chapter 393. Shocked to see the portraits Nvel. Future sister-in-law? Zhuangzi was going to get married? He glared at Lan Hua. "Don't talk nonsense. It's not a sure thing yet. Then she explained to Gu Yundong, ever since Zhuangzi became a shop assistant, there have been many matchmakers visiting us, but Zhuangzi has always been unsatisfied. A few days ago, a matchmaker introduced a family who lives next door to our village. Our Dashan asked Gaoxing's father. His father said that the girl was a good girl, but her family was a little poor. Zhao Zhu was reliable. He was from the same village as that girl. If he said that she was a good girl, that girl would definitely be good. It didn't matter if she was poor. Their family had been poor half a year ago. If they hadn't been lucky enough to meet the Gu family, Zhuangzi wouldn't even be considered a man ready to be married now. Both Shi Dashan and He Yi were satisfied. However, for some reason, Zhuangzi was not in the mood to get married at all. He said that he wanted to work hard all day long. They did not know where he learned that he had to start a career before starting a family. Look, he slept in the county shop last night and did not come back. However, Lan Huar was curious. She swayed over and took a look at the girl by the way. He Yi was also very worried. Zhuangzi is not young anymore. If he doesn't get married, it will be even harder to find him in the future. Miss Gu, that kid is listening to you now. Can you help me persuade him? At least he's a good match. How can you reject him without even looking at him? Gu Yundong was a little stunned when she heard that. She did not expect Zhuangzi to be so popular. Thinking about it, it made sense. Zhuangzi had a legitimate job and his parents were easy to talk to. Most importantly, he was not bad-looking. With his new clothes on, he looked very upright and energetic. However, this kid was actually ambitious and focused on his career. He didn't want to get married? Faced with He Yi's expectant gaze, Gu Yundong could not help but laugh dryly. She could only nod and say, "All right, I'll help persuade him later. But Aunt, you don't have to be too anxious. This depends on fate. Perhaps Zhuangzi's fate hasn't arrived yet?" At this moment, He Yi suddenly realized that the young lady of the Gu family was still young and had yet to get married. How could she tell her about this? It would be so awkward. She immediately felt a little ashamed. No, it's okay. You don't need to persuade him. Gu Yundong held her forehead. Should she persuade him or not? After staying in the Shi family for a while, Gu Yundong went to the workshop. The villagers in the workshop were very happy. When they saw her, they surrounded her and talked about the work they had been doing for the past few months. After that, they asked her nervously, "We're going to rest in 2 days. If you don't make sugar anymore, can you still hire us to work in the new workshop?" Gu Yundong was quite satisfied with these dozen people. However, the recruitment for the new workshop was not like now. At that time, they could only continue if both sides could accept the conditions. If we recruit more people from the new workshop, we'll have to hire long-term workers. Long-term workers are different from short-term workers. Think about it carefully these few days and see if you want to come. We'll talk about other things when you come over. Everyone fell into deep thought when they heard that. Gu Yundong only went back after she was done with the workshop. She didn't expect Shao Qingyuan to still not be back at night. Didn't he go to the bodyguard agency to look for someone? Could there be something else? Shao Qingyuan aside, Qin Wenjing had already taken the portraits Gu Yundong had given him and asked someone to bring them to the Xuanhe prefecture to paste them on the wall. Not long after they were pasted, an old woman carrying a basket came over to join in the fun. With just one look, her expression changed on the spot. She hurriedly squeezed out of the crowd and left in a hurry. Chapter 394. News of Aunt Gu's Nouvelle. The old woman's expression was tense. After turning 2 alleys, she finally entered the back door of a mansion with the surname Zhou. Then, she passed through the corridor and hurriedly walked towards the snow-blowing garden. On the way, she encountered a maidservant who asked her a question. She did not bother to answer and only handed the basket to her. She had already entered the courtyard. There was only one woman in the room. She was dressed in gold and jade and was lazily leaning against the couch, eating peaches. Seeing her rush in, she raised her eyebrows slightly. "Mrs. Ren, what's wrong with you? Look at how flustered you are." Mrs. Ren looked around and saw that the maidservants were all outside. She took 2 steps forward and whispered a few words into the woman's ear. When the woman heard this, she immediately straightened her body and frowned slightly. She did not even bother to eat the peach. Are you serious? Is that portrait really the same as Gu Daifeng's? Mrs. Ren thought for a moment. It's a little different. There's a scar missing from that portrait. The woman narrowed her eyes slightly and frowned thoughtfully. Who would look for them? Is there anyone they know in Xuanhe Prefecture? By the surname of Ku? She thought for a moment and instructed Mrs. Ren. Go and find out who that family in Fish Rice Alley is. All right. Mrs. Ren turned around and was about to leave when the woman stopped her. Wait, be quiet. Don't expose yourself. Also, go to the backyard and give the order. From today onwards, she's not allowed to walk around casually. She's not allowed to leave the Zhou family. All right. After Mrs. Ren left, the woman no longer had the mood to eat. She just waited anxiously for news from Mrs. Ren. It was only when the sky was about to turn dark that Mrs. Ren returned. However, from her expression, it did not seem to be going well. I've asked around. The Ku family in Fish Rice Alley only has a widow whose husband has died. She has lived in Fish Rice Alley for many years. It's just that I don't know where this woman has gone recently. I asked the neighbors around and they said that she left after the new year. I asked in detail, and the neighbors asked about my identity. I couldn't say it directly, so I said that I was an old friend of that woman. In the end, the neighbors seemed to be suspicious and asked me to go to the Nye Manor to look for young Master Nye. Nye Manor? The Nye Manor belonged to a large family in the Xuanhe Prefecture. They had a lot of connections and backers. Just that mansion alone was more than 2 times larger than the Zhou family. Mrs. Ren sighed. Our Zhou family has just arrived at the Xuanhe Prefecture and our foundation is unstable. It's difficult for Old Master to get in touch with the Nye family. If we offend the Nye family, Old Master will probably be furious. It's not good for me to ask around, so I came back. The woman's expression turned ugly. She secretly scolded Mrs. Ren for being useless, but she suppressed it and did not say anything. After a while she said, I didn't expect Gu Dafeng to get close to the Nye family. Don't let anyone know about this, especially Master. Also, find someone to put up another notice on the wall when no one is paying attention at night. At least cover half of that portrait for me. I'll do it now. Seeing her leave, the woman became even more frustrated. After a while, she finally couldn't help but go to the backyard. Gu Yundong did not know that the eldest Aunt Gu she was looking for was in Xuanhe Manor. As soon as she finished her dinner, Aunt Ke pulled her over for a heart-to-heart talk. The two of them entered Aunt Ke's house. The moment they entered, Aunt Ke asked with a dark expression, What exactly are your plans for Miss Shen? Shed just stay at home? Chapter 395. What attitude? Box novel. CM Gu Yundong was stunned and a little confused. Yes, Sitian is my friend. She just came to Yongfu village and is unfamiliar with this place. It's not safe for her to live alone outside. Besides, she doesn't have much money on her. It's not easy for her to build a house. If she doesn't have money, lend it to her. Aunt Ku expected better from her. When did you become a bodhisattva who saves all living beings from suffering? You took her in when she was homeless. Aren't you afraid of causing trouble for yourself? Gu Yundong blinked and asked uncertainly, Did Shin Sitian offend Aunt? Not really. Then how? She looked like she wanted to chase the woman away. Aunt Ke took a deep breath. Are you really stupid or are you pretending to be stupid? Shen Sitian is so good-looking. She has breasts and buttocks. You're like a little bean sprout in front of her. You're completely inferior to her. Why was she just a bean sprout? She had been growing very well recently, okay? Moreover, her face was not bad either. Why did it seem to Aunt Ku that she was still the sloppy little girl who had fled to her house half a year ago? That's right. Aunt Ku had already fixed Gu Yundong's image. No matter how well she dressed up, she still felt that Gu Yundong was the same person whose gender was uncertain. You have to be more careful. Shao Qingyuan is successful now and he's tall. Such a handsome man hasn't gotten married yet. Those girls in the village must be blind. That Miss Shen looks smart. What if she steals your man? Gu Yundong was speechless. So that's what you're worried about? She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Aunt, that's impossible. It's impossible between the two of them. You're still laughing. You have to be wary of others. I'm doing this for your own good. Gu Yundong quickly restrained her expression, but she still looked helpless. I know that Aunt is doing this for my own good, but Sitian is different. You don't know what she has experienced in the past. Moreover, she's afraid of Shao Qingyuan and avoids him like the plague. She's probably like those blind girls in the village, right? Back in Gu village, it was Shao Qingyuan who contacted Shen Sitian first and the two of them cooperated happily. At that time, Shen Sitian was not afraid of Shao Qingyuan. She only wanted revenge. In addition, she had been Gu Gang's concubine for a period of time. Although she did not say it, Gu Yundong knew that she had an inferiority complex. The girl felt that she was dirty. Later on, she met Zhou Dufu and his son on the way. Shen Sitian saw Shao Qingyuan throw the child onto the horse with her own eyes. He didn't care if the kid would be thrown off or stepped on until he turned into a meat patty. Only then did she finally realize Shao Qingyuan's true colors. Ever since then, Shen Sitian had tried her best to avoid talking to him. Gu Yundong found it strange. Wasn't she very cruel and bloodthirsty when she shot people with a crossbow? Why wasn't Shen Sitian afraid of her? Was she discriminating against her? Aunt Ke listened to her roughly and frowned slightly. She reluctantly believed her. It's good that you know what you're doing. Then I'll change my attitude towards her tomorrow? Gu Yundong was shocked. Aunt, what's your attitude towards her today? It's nothing. It's just that when that Master Qin and young Master Lu came over, I asked Miss Shen to go out and greet them. She'll take a look at those outstanding and handsome men and broaden her horizons. That way she won't steal your man. Gu Yundong was speechless. Her aunt was indeed her aunt. Her way of thinking was really different. Then how is she going to earn money? Get a job in your workshop? Chapter 396. Despair for Gu Yundong's novel. Gu Yundong shook her head. There's no need for that. Sishan's embroidery skills are good. She plans to make some handkerchiefs and screens to sell. Don't worry, Aunt. She's not someone who's greedy for small gains and has no plans. She even said that she'll pay rent if she stays here. Aunt Ke raised her eyebrows. From what you said, that girl is not bad. So if you get to know her better, you will find that she is a very gentle person, Gu Yundong said and hurriedly added. Of course, you are also a very gentle person. I don't know if I'm gentle or not. I only know that your embroidery skills aren't good. If you have time, you should learn more from Miss Shen, lest you don't even know how to embroider your own wedding dress. You're already an adult, but you can't even embroider a handkerchief. If your wedding dress is crooked and doesn't look good, I'll be embarrassing. Gu Yundong felt as if her soul had been struck by a blow. Aunt Ku was merciless with her words. Wasn't it good to give her some face and talk about her other merits? Isn't the wedding dress something you can buy? Aunt Ku glared at her. You're planning to buy your own wedding dress? Let me tell you, once you buy it, the entire Yongfu village and even the entire Fengkai county will know that Miss Gu can't even use an embroidery needle. Gu Yundong meekly stopped talking. Didn't they say that the rich family's girls didn't have to embroider their wedding dresses? The embroiderers at home had already made them. They just had to get the new bride to finish the last few stitches. Why did she have to embroider everything herself? Aunt Ku could tell what she was thinking at a glance. She immediately sneered. The problem is that you can't even finish the last few stitches. Gu Yundong said. Are you looking down on me? I'll go look for Shen Sitian now. I don't believe that I can't even use an embroidery needle. She turned around and left. Aunt Ku stood rooted to the ground, raised her eyebrows, and laughed. You've finally been tricked. However, to be honest, you don't know how to embroider at all. It's really embarrassing. Gu Yundong had honestly learned how to draw the picture from Shen Sitian. This was exactly what she was good at. Gu Yundong felt that it was quite simple. However, when she tied all the embroidery threads, she began to doubt herself. Aunt Ku was in despair, and so was Shen Sitian, who was teaching her. Who would have thought that the seemingly capable and omnipotent Gu Yundong would embroider grass as if she was going to the execution ground? Gu Yundong thought. This means that the heavens are guiding me in the right direction. They want me to work hard to earn money so that I can hire embroiderers to make clothes for me. Hence, She went to bed with a clear conscience. She still had to wake up early tomorrow to see her 50 acres of orchard. However, the next day, Madame Dong came over before she even left the house. She was holding a school bag in her hand. It was for Bian Yuanji. Knowing that he was going to school too, Dong Xiaolan rushed to make it overnight. Anyway, she was used to it. Bian Yuanji was overjoyed as he held his bag. He thanked Madame Dong and carefully placed the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone that Gu Yundong had prepared earlier into the bag. Then, he got into the carriage with slight apprehension and followed Gu Yunshu to the school. Gu Yundong had been wondering if he needed her to send him to school on his first day. Later on, she thought about it and decided to forget it. With Yunshu around and the familiar school, there wouldn't be any problems. On the other hand, Madame Dong didn't leave after delivering the bag. Instead, she waited for the two children to leave before getting down to business. Chapter 397. Marriage Proposals Nvel. CM Yundong. Madame Dong smiled at her. I'm actually here today to propose marriage for Qingyuan. Logically speaking, the marriage proposal should have been discussed between the elders of both sides. However, you know Qingyuan's situation. I watched him grow up, so I'm taking advantage of him now and acting as his elder. As for your family situation, I also know that you're in charge of the family, but you're young and don't know anything about marriage. I've been quite familiar with Aunt Ke recently, so I thought that we should get her to help me with the process. Gu Yundong immediately nodded. She knew nothing about these things. It was naturally better to have an elder who knew. Madame Dong went to talk to Aunt Ke. The marriage proposal process was not simple. They had to hire a matchmaker first. In the countryside, some procedures were not as rigorous, but Shao Qingyuan valued Gu Yundong, so he naturally had to follow the rules. Madame Dong was quite familiar with the surrounding villages and knew which matchmaker had a good reputation and a good temperament. As for the betrothal gifts, Shao Qingyuan would prepare them himself. Currently, they were only to be engaged. The wedding had to wait until Gu Yundong reached adulthood. Moreover, both parties planned to find Gu Dajiang first. After all, he was marrying someone's daughter. How could his father-in-law not be present? Madame Dong and Aunt Ke also pulled Madame Yang over while discussing. Although Madame Yang didn't quite understand, they would still ask for her opinion and patiently explain it to her. Gu Yundong listened at the side and felt dizzy. So there were so many rules? After Madame Dong left, she heaved a sigh of relief and quickly ran to see her 50 acres of land with Tong Shui Tao to sober up. Zhao Zhu knew that she was coming, so he quickly brought Goxing to the field. To Gu Yundong's surprise, Big Chen seemed to be busy with the fruit trees as well. After all, 50 acres of land was not small. When they were busy, they were really busy. Gu Yundong could not possibly let Zhao Zhu and his son work day and night. They had agreed back then that she would give them a certain amount of money. As for whom to hire for help, it was up to them. During the large-scale planting, Zhao Zhu had indeed hired many people. Now that he was no longer as busy, he was the only one working with Goxing and Big Chen. Zhao Zhu had surrounded the 50 acres of orchard with a fence. There were also 2 dogs inside, looking very fierce. However, when they saw Zhao Zhu and the others, the 2 dogs still obediently ran over. Zhao Zhu made them acknowledge Gu Yundong before leading them inside. The orchard was now divided into pieces. There were loquats, mulberries, cherries, strawberries, and peaches. Most of them had been moved from other places and had already grown, so they looked lush and pleasing. The place was still too small. Now that she had money in her hands, shouldn't she set up a farm? Gu Yundong thought about it and could not help but say, I didn't expect Uncle Zhao to be able to find so many fruit trees. At that time, I thought that half of them would be good enough. The orchard is also well managed. Uncle Zhao, you've worked hard. Zhao Zhu's cold and stern face softened slightly. He smiled and pointed at Big Chen behind him. Big Chen found quite a lot. Gu Yundong was surprised. She looked at the person who had been following them silently. Big Chen was still a little embarrassed. He said softly, It's just a coincidence. Coincidence. Chapter 398. Father, what do you mean? Box novel. CM Big Chen nodded. When I went out to look for work previously, I went to many places, so I know something. What kind of job did you find? He had earned 5 taels in a short period of time. Big Chen was even more embarrassed. I'd do anything. I've been to many villages. Some families need someone to carry things when they get married. Some need help when they go up the mountain. Some need to withstand beatings when they fight. Anyway, I'll go wherever there's money. In fact, these jobs did not earn much money. There was once when a rich young master offended someone. His figure was similar to that of the rich young master, so he pretended to be that person and was beaten half to death. In the end, the rich young master saw that he seemed to have vomited blood and directly threw 5 taels of silver to him. Actually, the blood was not Big Chen's. It was just chicken blood. He had deliberately spat it out in front of the rich young master. At that time, he thought that he could get 10 taels of silver. He did not expect that the person was very stingy and only gave him 5 taels. However, it was enough. He took the silver and hurried back. However, he had indeed gone to many places. He had not only gone to the villages near his county, but he had also gone to the neighboring county. Therefore, Big Chen knew very well where the fruit trees were. Yundong did not expect him to have such a harvest. Then can you purchase fruits? This time, you won't purchase fruit trees. You'll purchase fruits of good quality. Can you do that? Big Chen seemed to have realized something and suddenly looked up. His eyes were slightly excited, but he immediately nodded. Yes. I need a lot of fruits, but I also need you to negotiate the price. Nowadays, fruits were not cheap. Yundong wanted a large quantity, so it had to be cheap. Big Chen was more cautious this time and agreed without hesitation. He pursed his lips and finally said firmly, I can do it. All right, I'll get 2 people to go with you another day. Think carefully about which fruit you want to collect and which village you want to go to. You also have to consider the time it will take to travel back and forth. Come to Yongfu village to look for me when you're done thinking about it. We'll talk about the salary then. Big Chen nodded heavily. Okay, I'll definitely think about it carefully. Yundong looked at the orchard again. After asking Zhao Zhu about the planting, she planned to leave. However, just as she turned around, Big Chen chased after her. When he reached the entrance of the orchard, he took a deep breath and said solemnly, Boss, thank you. Yundong was stunned for a moment before she understood that he should be referring to the time when Grandma Chen came to her house. She smiled. Do a good job. Then, she left with Tong Shui Tao. I will. Big Chen was overjoyed. He stomped his feet and ran home. Zhao Zhu and his son, who came out later, looked at his departing back with slightly complicated expressions. Gosheng, in particular, sounded a little envious. Big Chen is going to be successful too. Why? Don't you want him to be successful? Gosheng shook his head. No, I just feel like I'm the only one who doesn't have anything. Zhuangzi went to the county city to work as a clerk. I heard that he planned to do a good job and try to become a shopkeeper in 2 years. Now that Big Chen has been put in an important position by Miss Gu, he might be a manager in the future. I'm the only one here to carry water and turn the soil every day. Zhao Zhu reached out and patted his head. Why? Do you dislike it? Let me ask you, who told you that you're useless just because you carry water and turn the soil every day? Gosheng looked up in confusion. Dad, what do you mean? Chapter 399. Send you to learn martial arts Nvel. CM Zhao Zhu looked at his son's ignorant expression and sighed inwardly. It was his fault. In the past, he married the wrong woman, who was heartless and indulged his son, nurturing his domineering and stupid personality. However, when he saw that, he only hit and scolded his son when his son caused trouble. He had never thought that the father and son should have a good talk. Fortunately, it was not too late. Upon hearing his son's question, Zhao Zhu patiently explained, Miss Gu has built a new workshop and is purchasing so many fruits. She will definitely be in the fruit business next. Now that the fruits outside are expensive, she bought an orchard and planted them herself. Just watch. In the future, her orchard will definitely not only be 50 acres here. It will expand. If you manage the orchard well and the fruits grow well, you might become the manager of the orchard in the future. Gosheng was stunned for a moment. Then it dawned on him. He slapped his thigh hard and said, "Why didn't I think of that? Dad, you're amazing. You even thought of that." Facing Gaosheng's worshipful gaze, Zhao Zhu felt proud and sad. Could his son really become a manager like this? Forget it, forget it. It was not too late to teach his son something while he was still young. The father and son talked as they walked home. Gosheng was no longer disappointed. His father was right. Everyone had their own path to walk. His current goal was to become the manager of the orchard. At this moment, Tong Shui Tao was also asking this question. Gu Yundong's thoughts coincided with Zhao Zhu's. However, what she valued now was not Gosheng, but Zhao Zhu. Tong Shui Tao did not fully understand, but she seemed to have thought of something else and quickly said, "Then miss, how can I help? Don't you think I'm strong? Can I follow them to purchase fruits? I can carry 2 big boxes alone." Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. "You want to purchase fruits? I just think that Big Chen looks like a weak chicken and is easy to beat up. I can help him." Gu Yundong fell into deep thought. Tong Shui Tao asked again, "Miss, can I go?" "Shui Tao, do you like martial arts?" Tong Shui Tao was stunned. Why did the topic change so quickly? However, she still nodded quickly. "I like it. I've been strong since I was young. At that time, I thought that since I can't be a little woman, I'll be a heroine. Unfortunately, she was just a servant and could only carry water and chop firewood." Gu Yundong said, "Brother Shao has been looking for bodyguards to teach Mao and the other 3 martial arts. If you're interested, you can learn with them. However, you're a girl after all, so it's a little inconvenient." It's convenient. Before Gu Yundong could finish speaking, Tong Shui Tao hurriedly expressed her stance. People in the martial arts world don't care about trifles. There's no distinction between men and women when learning martial arts. There's no need to be so particular. Besides, I'll be just watching from the side. If there's anything wrong, just let the escort point it out for me. We won't have any contact." Gu Yundong looked at her anxious expression in amusement. "Then, do you want to purchase fruits or learn martial arts?" Tong Shui Tao was actually in a difficult position for a moment. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and said, "I'll be learning martial arts. If I learn it well, I can protect Mississippi. I'll be even more useful in the future." Gu Yundong smiled. "All right, I'll ask Brother Shao when we get back." Tong Shui Tao became happy, and her footsteps became a little impatient. Unexpectedly, just as the 2 of them reached the entrance of the Gu residence, they saw 4 to 5 people gathered outside. Chapter 400. Eerie Gu Yundong's Novel. They were still pointing at the house with disdain on their faces. Tong Shui Tao only heard their conversation when she got closer. "I knew it. This young lady from the Gu family must have eloped with that wolf cub." "That's right. Otherwise, why would that wolf cub propose marriage as soon as she returned? Gu Yundong hasn't reached adulthood yet, right? Why is she in such a hurry? Is she pregnant?" When she said this, the people around her widened their eyes. It couldn't be, right? Tong Shui Tao was furious. "You gossipy old women. I'll tear your mouths apart." As she spoke, she pounced on the person who had spread the most rumors. The few of them immediately turned their heads and retreated. As they retreated, they saw Gu Yundong standing at the back and looking at them coldly. Gu Yundong was smiling, but this smile reminded them of the day when she had ruthlessly whipped Hu Liang with the sole of her shoe. All of them immediately felt their faces hurt. Miss Gu, we're just spouting nonsense. Don't take it to heart." That's right. We're just watching the show. We're leaving now. We won't disturb you anymore." Gu Yundong looked at them one by one. They were still those people. Weren't they the gossipy old women that Aunt Ku had memorized? Now they were bold enough to come to her door. Gossip gave people courage? I'm just curious. Since you're afraid of me and know that Shao Qingyuan is a wolf cub who doesn't show any mercy, how dare you talk behind our backs and ruin our reputation? Why? Aren't you afraid that the 2 of us will join forces to take revenge? The faces of those old women instantly turned pale. The person who was grabbed by Tong Shui Tao that was about to tear her mouth apart forgot to resist. The corners of her mouth were fiercely pulled open and almost cracked. Yundong glanced at them again and said meaningfully, "I hope you won't regret it." With that, she strode through the door. The few old women's bodies were a little weak. "She won't really cause us trouble, will she? Let's go, let's hurry home." The door was cleared in an instant. Tong Shuitao looked outside and finally reported to Yundong in satisfaction. "They're all gone. Miss is indeed impressive. You scared them so much that they didn't even dare to fart." Yundong felt that not only did Tong Shuitao have to learn martial arts, but she also had to learn how to read. This flattery made her feel good. She walked inside. Before she reached the central room, she heard an unfamiliar voice. Yundong paused for a moment before continuing forward. When she got closer, she realized that the person who spoke was dressed like a matchmaker. She was counting Shao Qingyuan's merits. When she saw Yundong, her eyes lit up. "Oh, she's indeed a good-looking girl. No wonder young Master Shao values her so much." Yundong pursed her lips. At Aunt Kes' signal, she shyly walked to the back and sat down. Shao Qingyuan was also there, but his clothes looked wet. There were 2 geese beside his feet. Just as she was feeling puzzled, Dong Xiulan whispered in her ear, "Qingyuan heard that it's best to bring 2 wild geese to propose a marriage. It's for good luck." He went to catch wild geese overnight. His clothes were wet, but he didn't have time to change. The geese rested by the water. It was unknown where Shao Qingyuan was squatting and waiting for them, but he looked a little disheveled. She glanced at the matchmaker who was chatting happily with Aunt Ku and gave Shao Qingyuan a look before silently leaving the central room. Not long after, Shao Qingyuan also came out to the backyard. Yundong pinched his sleeve, and Shao Qingyuan held her hand. Yundong was speechless. She just wanted to know how wet his clothes were. She did not want to hold his hand. She glared at him. "Hurry up and go back and change your clothes. I can wring water out of it. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold?" "I'll leave after we've settled it. There are a lot of things to discuss here. I don't know when they'll be done. Hurry up and go back to change." "But you said you'd listen to me." Shao Qingyuan immediately shut up and nodded. "Then I'll go back first." Yundong stood under the corridor and watched him walk out of the Gu house. Only then was she satisfied. She was about to return to the central room when she saw an unexpected person appear at the door. Chapter 401. An Errand Boy's Novel. CM Yundong walked forward and asked with a smile, "Uncle Jiang, what's the matter?" When Jiang Yongkang saw her, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I passed by the river just now and saw your mother sprained her ankle. There was a lady supporting her, but she looked like she couldn't walk steadily, so she asked me to come to your house to inform you." Yundong hurried out. "Thank you for coming to tell me." Jiang Yongkang led the way. "It's nothing. No matter who it is, they will help. It's just that I'm a man and can't support your mother. I can only help run errands." As he spoke, they saw Xianxia and Madame Yang walking over carefully. Xianxia had come to the river to wash clothes. She was now living with the Gu family. Although Yundong had taken good care of her, she did her own things. Sometimes, she would help the Gu family with some work. As for Madame Yang, she was used to doing chores in the past. Although there were already servants at home now and she didn't have to wake up early and work late at night, she couldn't change her habits in a short time. If she didn't do something, she would feel at a loss. Yundong did not hold her back. If she wanted to cook, she could cook. If she wanted to wash clothes, she could wash them. If she wanted to play with puzzles, she could play. She could also sleep or rest as long as she was happy. Today, she saw that Xianxia was going to wash clothes, so she carried a small basket out. There were only 2 old clothes that she had found. Xianxia took care of her and coaxed her to sit on a rock to chat with her. She was fine at first. Unexpectedly, when she was about to stand up after washing her clothes, she almost fell. Madame Yang panicked and immediately rushed up to help her. However, while Xianxia was safe and sound, Madame Yang sprained her ankle. This place was close to the foot of the mountain, and the girls and women in the village rarely washed here. Xianxia did not see anyone, so she helped Madame Yang back. However, she was thin and weak, so it was especially difficult for her to walk. Fortunately, Yongkang saw them and went to the Gu family to call for help. When Gu Yundong came over, she squatted down and carried Madame Yang on his back. Yongkang was surprised. Miss Gu is so strong. Gu Yundong smiled. I've trained. Although she was not as strong as Tong Shui Tao, it was not a problem for her to carry Madame Yang. Shan Sitian stood at the side and supported her. Seeing this, Yongkang said, "How about this? I'll make another trip and find the doctor." Before Gu Yundong could reject him, he had already left. She could only carry Madame Yang home first. The matchmaker had already left, and Shao Qingyuan had also changed his clothes. Seeing Madame Yang being carried back, the family surrounded her nervously. Fortunately, Yongkang quickly brought the village doctor over. Although this doctor was not as good as the county doctor, he was still quite good at treating physical injuries. The moment he arrived, he asked about Madame Yang's pain. When Aunt Ku saw Yongkang standing at the side, she was stunned. While Madame Yang was talking, she pulled Gu Yundong aside and asked, "What's going on? Why is he here?" "Uncle Jiang ran over to inform me that my mother sprained her ankle. Later he sent for the doctor." Aunt Ku nodded and walked back with Gu Yundong. Unexpectedly, she heard Yongkang comfort Madame Yang. "Bear with it. It won't hurt." However, Madame Yang kept shaking her head and refused to let the doctor touch her feet. When she saw Gu Yundong coming over, she seemed to have found her backbone and reached out to hug her. She stretched out her trembling feet for the doctor to treat her. Yongkang. Chapter 402. Closing the workshops Nvel. As long as Gu Yundong was by her side, Madame Yang was not afraid of pain. During the treatment, she did not even cry out. She only hugged Gu Yundong's waist with extra strength. After the doctor left, Tong Shui Tao carried Madame Yang back to her room to rest. Only then did Gu Yundong express her gratitude to Yongkang. Yongkang waved his hand. "It's just running around. It's not worth the thanks. Since there's nothing else, I'll leave." Gu Yundong asked him to stay for tea, but he rejected her. As soon as he left, Aunt Ku pulled Gu Yundong to talk about the outcome of the matchmaker's conversation. Since both parties were interested, they should use their birth dates to calculate and see if they were suitable. There was no need for Gu Yundong to worry about the rest. Aunt Ku felt that she was not her biological mother after all, so she had to explain every step to her. Gu Yundong gave her the date of birth and went back to work. The sugar cane was gone, and it was almost time for the workshop to close. On the last day, Gu Yundong went to the Lu family's courtyard. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw that the courtyard had been tidied up and that the villagers were extremely reluctant to leave. "It's been hard on everyone for the past few months. Besides your salary in the last month, you will be given an additional 100 copper coins as a reward. Everyone, rest well." When everyone heard that there was a bonus of 100 copper coins, they instantly came back to their senses with faint excitement on their faces. "There's one more thing. I've told everyone last time that the workshop here has stopped. The new workshop will start work again in a few days, but this time, the workshop will recruit long-term workers. Have you thought about it when you go back?" Wang Xuanzi was the first to respond. "I'll do it." In any case, his family only had 2 acres of land and did not grow much crops. His wife could completely handle it alone. Before he worked in the Gu family, he had been looking for jobs for more than half a year. However, not only could he not find good work, but his salary was also low. He also had to spend money on food and accommodation outside. Wang Xuanzi felt that there was no better job than working in the Gu family. It was close to home, and he could help if anything occurred to his family. Moreover, the salary was high and stable. Most importantly, he had only been working in the Gu family for a few months, and his family had already eaten meat 3 to 4 times. His wife and children looked much better. Su Huaer also raised her hand anxiously. "Me too. I'll do it too." After Su Huaer got married, she was originally cooking, washing clothes, and taking care of the children at home. Occasionally, she had to go to the fields. Every day, she was so busy that her feet did not touch the ground, but she was still despised by her mother-in-law, who said that she was lazy all day and did not serve the man well. Su Hua felt wronged. She was not the only one who came to the Gu family's recruitment that day. Her sister-in-law was also there. She did not have much hope at that time. She did not expect that she would be chosen instead of her sister-in-law. From then on, her status in the family rose steadily. Her mother-in-law's expression improved, and her sister-in-law stopped being sarcastic. When she returned, not only did she not have to serve her husband, but her husband also gave her foot wash. This treatment had never happened before. Su Hua understood how important this job in the Gu family was to her. It didn't matter how much the salary was. Anyway, the family didn't split up. She had to hand over the monthly earnings to her mother-in-law. However, the feeling of having a say at home was completely different. Sometimes, the Gu family would even give them some food as a reward. She could bring it back and keep it. Therefore, when the Gu family said that they wanted to recruit long-term workers, Su Hua accepted without even thinking about it. Not only her, but the others also agreed. Even if they were paid less, they still wanted to stay. However, they did not expect that the treatment of the long-term workers would also make them excited. Chapter 403. The Gu family is recruiting long-term workers. Nvel. CM Gu Yundong counted, and in the end, 12 people agreed to stay. After all, long-term workers were different from short-term workers. They signed long-term contracts and had many restrictions. If you suddenly quit midway, the boss could sue you. These people had a lot of work to do at home, so they had no choice. The Lu family had originally rented the courtyard to Gu Yundong as a temporary workshop. The three of them worked here as temporary workers. Now that they were going to sign a long-term contract, only the couple agreed. As for Father Lu, firstly, he was old, and secondly, there was other work at home. Someone had to do it. Gu Yundong had an idea of what to do. She said, "Since you've decided, well, sign a contract tomorrow. The salary will still be 500 copper coins at the beginning, but there will be 3 days of vacation every month. We'll start working at 7 in the morning, rest for 2 hours at noon, and stop at 5 in the evening. If there's anything at home or if you're not feeling well, you can take leave, but your salary will be deducted for a day." She explained some of the rules of the long-term workers first to avoid any controversy in the future. However, such conditions were enough to make these people excited and happy. Even the villagers who originally did not plan to sign long-term jobs were filled with envy and eagerness. However, they could not afford to leave their homes and could only feel regretful. Even so, they visited Gu Yundong afterwards, thinking that she could still look for them if she had short-term jobs one day. Gu Yundong agreed. She was very satisfied that no one had slacked off during this period of time. Once the matter was settled, Gu Yundong gave everyone their wages. Every month, on this day, everyone's eyes would light up, especially in the last month. Gu Yundong promised to give them an extra 100 copper coins. After settling the wages and coming out of the Lu family's courtyard, she looked up at the sky and heaved a sigh of relief. Big Chen had already gone to other villages to collect fruits. Eldest Tong and Lu Wei, who had joined in the fun, followed him. Gu Yundong also did not understand why Lu Wei was so enthusiastic about her business, even though he did not care about his own business. No wonder old Master Lu wanted to throw him away every time he mentioned him. Shao Qingyuan also invited the escort from the Jiang family's bodyguard agency over. The guy was originally an escort who guided others in martial arts. He could be considered very experienced. After the escort came, he started training a Mao and the others the next day. Tong Shui Tao also woke up early every day and ran to the Shao family. Shao Qingyuan even bought an old woman to help wash clothes and cook. However, he still came to the Gu house to eat every day. It was as if he could eat 2 more bowls of rice just by looking at Gu Yundong. The new workshop could already be used. Gu Yundong started to recruit people again. When this news came out, many people, be they from Yongfu village, Shenbei village, or the Song family village, came after hearing it. Not only did the Gu family's workshop have a high salary, but they also gave out things during the new year. Occasionally, there would be bonuses. These things had long been spread by the dozen or so short-term workers from before. Everyone who was related to Yongfu village knew that they worked well in the Gu family. As a result, many people came. Gu Yundong was shocked when she opened the door in the morning. She only planned to recruit 30 people this time. Everything had to be done slowly. After all, she did not know the fruit production here. If she recruited too many people but did not have much work, wouldn't she suffer a loss? Hence, she told everyone the number of people she needed and told them to be mentally prepared. She did not want too many people. Then, she got everyone to line up. The person sitting at the desk taking notes was the second son of the Tong family, Tongan previously. This person was the fastest and most diligent when he learned how to read. Now that a few months had passed, he could recognize the basic words. Chapter 404. Why Don't You Want Me? Box Novel. CM Gu Yundong intended to train Tong En to be the manager of the workshop. This time, she might as well let him record everything during the recruitment. Tong En was very nervous. He had always been the type to work silently. He did not expect his boss to value him so much. Now that he was holding the brush, he had to restrain himself with all his might to not tremble. The crowd in front was noisy. The young lady was talking and answering many people's questions. Suddenly, a cup of water appeared in front of him. Tong En looked up and saw Xianxia pointing at it. This is jasmine tea. Try it. If you're still nervous, you can take a deep breath or hold your hands tightly. It might be useful if you tense up your body for a while. Tong En was stunned. He subconsciously did as she said and actually felt much better. He raised his head in surprise and said gratefully, "Thank you, Miss Shen." "No need. A doctor told me this before. If you're nervous in the future, it'll be much better when you do this." Xianxia smiled and handed another cup of water to Gu Yundong. When she saw Shao Qingyuan, she silently handed the cup to Mao and asked him to pass it to him. Shao Qingyuan had brought Mao to suppress the situation. He was afraid that there would be people like the Li family who didn't know what was good for them and came to cause trouble. As expected, with him around, it was as if there was a stabilizing force. At least, after the Li family came over to take a look, they immediately shrank back. The villagers had already lined up obediently. Gu Yundong took a look and said, "The Gu family's workshop is for food, so the minimum requirement is to dress neatly and cleanly. Those who can wring a pile of mud out of their sleeves don't have to queue." The crowd immediately buzzed, especially those who had not showered, washed their hair, and changed their clothes for a few days. They immediately wished they could hide their sleeves. Slowly, some people came out of the group, and a few people simply ran home and quickly washed their hair and changed their clothes before coming back again. But Gu Yundong would not wait for them. She began to call for people and ask about their situations. Although she had given preferential treatment to her fellow villagers this time, if there was anyone good in the neighboring villages, she would naturally want them. After stating her basic request, she sat at the side and waited for Tong En to handle everything. After relieving his nervousness, Tong En raised his brush again. It actually made people feel uneasy when facing him. As long as he asked, the villagers would answer honestly. Tong En nodded as he took notes. When he felt that someone was capable, he would make them stand on the left and wait for Gu Yundong's screening. However, just as he chose the 15th person, Gu Yundong suddenly said, "Not this person." Tong En was not the only one who was stunned. The villager also looked up in surprise. He thought that he was dressed appropriately and was clean. His hair had just been washed this morning, and he was much more energetic than the previous candidate. Moreover, he had the experience of doing short-term work outside. He was also agile and wouldn't slack off. Why didn't she want him? When the Gu family recruited short-term workers, if he hadn't already found a job in the county city, he wouldn't have missed it. This time, he was originally full of confidence. After all, compared to Wang Xuanzi, who was next door, he felt that he had a lot of advantages. Even though he was afraid of Shao Qingyuan, this person couldn't help but ask, "Why? Why don't you want me? Which part of me doesn't meet the requirements?" Shao Qingyuan frowned. That person was terrified and could not help but take a small step back. However, he still looked at Gu Yundong stubbornly. Chapter 405. Holding a Grudge. Senvel. CM Gu Yundong did not ask Shao Qingyuan to appear. She just calmly took a sip of tea and smiled at the person. After a while, seeing that the person was getting impatient and irritable, she said, "Why don't I want you?" She raised her eyebrows. "You might as well go back and ask your wife." That person was stunned. Ask his wife? His wife was also here. He turned around to look for his wife. Sure enough, he saw his wife, who was also puzzled, behind the crowd. That person took a few quick steps forward and couldn't control his volume when he was in front of her. He asked loudly, "Tell me, what did you do? Why don't they want me?" His wife shook her head in confusion. The next moment, she suddenly reacted. "No, it can't be, right?" Her expression changed instantly. The man in front of her naturally saw it and immediately roared, "What's going on?" I only gossiped about the Gu family's girl last time." "What gossip?" "I just said that she hasn't been back for a few months and she might have run away with the wolf cub." The more she spoke, the softer her voice and the paler her face became. The man felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He knew that his wife was a little gossipy, and she could talk about every little thing in the village for half a day. In the past, he did not take it seriously. Which one of the villagers who had nothing better to do was not like this? However, he didn't expect her to gossip about the Gu family and Shao Qingyuan. She could be so stupid to talk about the two people that she could not afford to offend. Most importantly, they knew about it. The man was so angry that his hands began to tremble. It was fine if this prodigal woman couldn't help the family properly, but she even destroyed the job he had been longing for. His wife saw that he was furious and hurriedly apologized to Gu Yundong. "Miss Gu, I was wrong. Look at my husband. He's very capable. You won't lose out if you hire him as a long-term worker." Gu Yundong smiled. "No matter how good he is, I won't accept him. Since he wants to be my family's long-term worker, he'll be your boss. I can't afford such a long-term worker who dares to ruin his boss' reputation." The man's tense nerves finally snapped with a bang. He reached out and hit his wife ruthlessly. "I must have been blind to marry such a troublesome woman like you. You do nothing all day long and even complain about this and that. I'll beat you to death." The woman was so frightened that she ran around. Mao received Shao Qingyuan's gaze and pulled them out of the team, then let them fight as they pleased. Gu Yundong secretly sneered. When she looked at the crowd again, she saw several women with pale faces and anxious expressions. Under everyone's gaze, she took out a small notebook. After flipping through 2 pages, she said, "Other than the one just now, there's also Deng Dania's family, Li Fu's family, Chang Yudi's family, and Li Wugi's family. I don't want any of them." Everyone's expressions were strange. "You actually recorded them in your notebook. Are you afraid that you'll forget them?" The expressions of the families who were called out looked very dangerous. They all turned around to look for their wives. Only Li Fu was at a loss. "My wife died a long time ago." Gu Yundong glanced at him. "Oh, your daughter-in-law was quite enthusiastic when she gossiped." Li Fu's expression changed drastically, and his body trembled with anger. Better marry a smart wife than a pretty one. It was really the ancestors' wise saying. Look at them. All of them had been harmed by their us-tongued women. The women had already run away. The men from the families chased after them. After they left, Gu Yundong closed her notebook. "If anyone feels that I did something wrong, you can bring it up." Who would dare? Chapter 406. Chen Family's Nouvelle. No one raised any objections. Instead, someone said very cleverly, "I think Boss Gu is right. How can a long-term worker go around saying bad things about the boss family and ruin the boss reputation? Moreover, the rumors are all fake. They're spouting nonsense without any evidence. This is because their minds are not clear and there's something wrong with their thoughts." Yo, this one can talk. Gu Yundong had a preliminary impression of this person, but she did not say anything. Quite a number of people chimed in and criticized those women. Even those who had been screened were on Gu Yundong's side. After all, who knew if they would be chosen next time? Gu Yundong was very satisfied with the effect and asked Tongan to continue. Tongan had chosen a total of more than 40 people. He felt that these people were not bad. Next, she asked Gu Yundong to choose another 20 people. After all, she had to count the people who had previously worked for her family. In total, She had recruited more than 30 people. In the end, they confirmed that there were 22 people from the local village and 11 people from the other villages. Chen Liang had been watching from the beginning to the end. At this moment, he was smiling and was extremely satisfied. In the past 6 months, Yongfu village had slowly risen because of the Gu family's workshop. There were many people who repaired houses. As he walked on the village road, he could even smell the fragrance of meat from time to time. Even the matchmakers came frequently. In the future, Yongfu village would probably have to walk in front of other villages. As the village chief, he was proud. Yes, outstanding. On the other hand, Madame Zhou, who was beside him, tugged at Chen Liang's sleeve and asked softly, "Our family really?" Chen Liang turned around and glared at her. "What's wrong with our family? Isn't second son also working at the Gu family? He's pretty good." "But the first son?" Chen Liang pulled a long face. "If he wants to work here, then he should come himself. If he meets the requirements, the Gu girl will hire him. If he doesn't come himself, do you want the Gu girl to invite him? How shameless." Madame Zhou sighed. Her first son had been working in town. Not long ago, a relative of the boss came over and took over the position of her first son. Her first son could only bring his wife and children back. Now, he was doing farm work at home. But how many years had it been since he went to the fields? One could imagine how frustrated he was. He knew that his brother worked in the Gu family for 500 copper coins a month. Although it was not as much as his salary in town, it was not much different. After all, he had worked in town for so long. The Chen family's first son wanted to come, but he could not bring himself to do so. When Madame Zhou saw Gu Yundong last time, she looked haggard and wanted to say something, but she did not say anything in the end. She knew that it was inappropriate. Madame Zhou was not a thick-skinned person and knew Gu Yundong's character. But as a mother, she felt terrible watching her eldest son suffer at home every day. Chen Liang snorted softly. "Let's go. Second son is already a long-term worker of the Gu family. Someone has to do the work at home. It's good that first son is back." With that, they left the Gu residence. Gu Yundong could only see his back from afar. After the recruitment, they signed the contract. Gu Yundong asked everyone to come over the next day to familiarize themselves with the workshop. Only then did the crowd at the entrance of the Gu family slowly disperse. Seeing the 30-odd people who had been recruited, the villagers were envious. Many people went over to get close to them. Gu Yundong did not care. She looked at Tong'an with admiration in her eyes. "You did well today." Tong'an immediately put down his pen and felt a little embarrassed. He could not help but glance at Xianxia, but he quickly retracted his gaze and said, "Thank you, Mississippi." Chapter 407. Yang's Enlightenment's Nvel. Xianxia happened to see him too. She was slightly stunned when she saw him and smiled. Then, she turned around and went through the door to help pack the stuff. She had already embroidered several handkerchiefs over the past few days. Her embroidery skills were not bad, and even Aunt Ku was amazed. When Xianxia left the Gu village, she had taken 20 taels of silver from Gu Gang. Although it was not a small amount, Gu Yundong had paid for her meals and accommodation along the way. When they arrived at the Gu house, Xianxia insisted on offering Gu Yundong 10 taels of silver for her cost during this period of time. Currently, she only had 10 taels of silver on her. It was really not enough, and she urgently wanted to earn more. After all, she still had to build a house in the future. Food, clothes, and transportation all required money. Xianxia planned to stay single for the rest of her life. She had once been a concubine to an old man. Although there were few people who knew about it, there was still a hurdle in her heart that she could not overcome. It was actually quite good to be alone. If she embroidered more handkerchiefs, she could retire after earning enough money. Holding the handkerchief in her hand, Xianxia planned to go to town tomorrow and sell the handkerchiefs for some money. She went to look for Gu Yundong. She had wanted to ask him how to get to town, but Gu Yundong said directly to Father Tong, "It just so happens that Yunshu and the rest are on leave tomorrow. You can drive Miss Shen to the town's cloth shop." Father Tong agreed. The next morning, he prepared carriage. Unexpectedly, just as they were about to set off, Madame Yang also wanted to go. Gu Yundong was surprised. "Mother, Why are you going to town? Madame Yang ran back to her room and took out 2 handkerchiefs for her to see. Yundong was even more surprised. Mother, did you embroider them? Madame Yang nodded proudly. She had actually learned a lot from Xianxia over the past few days. Seeing Xianxia embroidering at the side, she was also busy with her needlework. Madame Yang was a calm person. Compared to Yundong's terrible skills, Madame Yang seemed to be talented in this aspect. With someone teaching her, she actually did quite well. Even Xianxia did not know that she had secretly embroidered too. After taking a closer look, she realized that they were actually quite exquisite. Mother, are you planning to sell the handkerchiefs too? Yundong was pleasantly surprised and could not bear to part with them. Madame Yang nodded. In exchange for money. Xianxia smiled. Then give me the handkerchiefs and I'll help you sell them, okay? Madame Yang suddenly hid the handkerchiefs behind her back. She pursed her lips and said, I'll go myself. Yundong smiled when she saw how determined her mother was. Mother, you're amazing. All right, Mother will go with Sitian. I'll get Shui Tao to follow you. Madame Yang immediately nodded happily and hurriedly got into the carriage. Yundong shook her head helplessly and instructed Tong Shui Tao not to leave Madame Yang's side. Tong Shui Tao agreed seriously. Thus, when Yunka woke up and wanted to play with her mother, she searched the entire Gu family but could not find her mother. Madame Yang carefully wrapped the 2 handkerchiefs and looked happy. Xianxia smiled. When did Auntie embroider them? I didn't even see you. In my room. Madam, you're actually keeping it a secret. Tong Shui Tao smiled as she supported Madame Yang. The 3 of them were not lonely as they chatted and laughed in the carriage. Just as the carriage was about to leave the village, a familiar voice suddenly came from outside. Father Tong, are you going to town? Can you give me a ride? Xianxia lifted the curtain and saw Jiang Yongkang standing outside with a bag on his back. Chapter 408. A Ride's Nouvelle. Jiang Yongkang looked up and realized that there were 3 women in the carriage. He immediately felt embarrassed. You're all here. Forget it. Xianxia asked, Uncle Jiang, are you going to town? Jiang Yongkang nodded and smiled gently. I haven't been back for a long time. I'm going back to see my grandson with some dried mushrooms for them. I dried them myself. He patted the bag on his body. Then come up. We're going to town too. They had gotten his help last time. Could it be that they were unwilling to even give him a ride? This isn't a good idea. Tong Shui Tao didn't like his hesitation and said, What's the matter? You can just sit outside with my grandfather. Madame Yang also nodded. Jiang Yongkang thanked him and got into the carriage. Father Tong chuckled. Hold on tight. The carriage set off again. However, the 3 people in the carriage who were originally chatting happily could not say anything because there was an unfamiliar man outside. Jiang Yongkang was also very quiet. Occasionally, he would talk to Father Tong in a low voice. The carriage arrived in town not long after. Jiang Yongkang bade them farewell and left with his bag. Father Tong had been to this town a few times and knew where there was a cloth shop. He immediately rode the carriage to the largest cloth shop. Tong Shui Tao accompanied Madame Yang and Xianxia in. Father Tong found a place to park the carriage and waited for them. After an unknown period of time, he finally saw the 3 of them coming out from afar. However, compared to their expressions when they entered, the 3 of them had very ugly expressions. His granddaughter clenched her fists and looked like she was about to hit someone. Father Tong hurriedly went forward. Before he could ask, he heard Tong Shui Tao's indignant voice. She's too much of a bully. Seeing that we're strangers, she kept lowering the price. 5 copper coins per piece. We even used our own embroidery thread and fabric. How shameless of her. Father Tong quickly asked, What happened? Tong Shui Tao said, The lady boss of that cloth shop is a good-for-nothing. At first, when she saw that we were dressed well, she thought that we were going to buy things. In the end, when we asked her if she wanted embroidered handkerchiefs, her expression changed on the spot. When she saw Miss Shin's handkerchief, she kept despising it and only gave us 5 copper coins. It was as if she was dismissing a beggar. Father Tong couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't know much about this, he heard from his wife and Aunt Ku that Miss Shen's embroidery work was something that few people could compare to. Anyone who knew a little about the market would pay at least 20 copper coins for a handkerchief. I know another cloth shop. Why don't we go there and take a look? Xianxia nodded. Yes, let's take a look at more shops. We can compare them. The three of them walked in the direction of the carriage. Father Tong could not help but say, actually, the town can't compare to the county city. Why don't you go to the county city and ask? Xianxia held her forehead. At that time, I thought that since the town was close, I could just walk over myself. I didn't want to trouble Father Tong to bring me over. Who knew that when Yundong heard that I was coming over, she would ask you to drive me? She didn't expect Madame Yang to follow too. How is this troublesome? I have to send the two young masters to school every day. It's by the way. Xianxia shook her head. Yunshu and Yuanji went early. You went in as soon as the city gate opened. You came back immediately after sending them off. I heard that most of the cloth shops in the county weren't open at that time. How could I make you wait? Chapter 409. Madame Yang is unhappy. Znvel. When Father Tong heard this, he could not help but rub his head. He chuckled and did not know how to answer. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind. Father Tong? Why are you here? The few of them turned around. Whoa, wasn't this Jiang Yongkang who had just left not long ago? Father Tong was also surprised. Why are you here? My house is over there. Jiang Yongkang pointed to an alley not far away. I just went home and put my things down. I'm going to buy some vegetables to cook. Do you want to come to my house? No. Xianxia rejected him. We still have to find a cloth shop. Cloth shop. Jiang Yongkang was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. You want to buy cloth? I think there's only Chen's clothing shop nearby. However, that shop looks big, but it doesn't have a good reputation in our area. It's best to change to another shop. Tong Shui Tao's eyes lit up. That's right. Uncle Jiang, you're very familiar with this town. Do you know which cloth shop accepts embroidery work at a fair price? Jiang Yongkang smiled. There really is one. I'll bring you there. There's no need. You still have to buy groceries. Just point us in the right direction and we'll go ourselves. Jiang Yongkang said. It's not far. The market I'm going to is also there. Let's go and not waste any more time. As he spoke, he suddenly paused and looked at Father Tong. It's just that it's not easy to ride this carriage over. The road is narrow, and it's easy for the carriage to bump into the small stalls by the roadside. Tong Shui Tao waved her hand. Then wait for us here. Father Tong could only stay behind and continue watching the carriage. The cloth shop that Jiang Yongkang mentioned was indeed not far. It was just 2 alleys away. The cloth shop was clean and tidy. Although the size of the shop was not as big as the previous one, the boss' smiling attitude was quite good. When he saw the embroidery handkerchief Xianxia took out, his eyes lit up. This embroidery is good. Did you embroider it? After Xianxia nodded, the boss was even happier. He bought the embroidered handkerchiefs for 30 copper coins apiece. This was considered a high price in the town. It was higher than Xianxia had expected. She had embroidered 10 handkerchiefs and earned 300 copper coins. She was still a little excited. After that, the boss took out an embroidery drawing and asked her if she could embroider it. Xianxia did not expect to receive embroidery work. She looked at the picture carefully and immediately agreed. The boss said that if she could finish the embroidery in half a month, he would give her 1 tael of silver directly. Moreover, he would give her the fabric and thread. Before Xianxia could say anything, Tong Shui Tao's eyes lit up. 1 tael of silver for half a month, 2 taels of silver a month. So embroidery was so profitable? Xianxia agreed and looked at Madame Yang. Auntie, where's your embroidery handkerchief? The boss was stunned. He looked at the woman who had been silent but looked to be the best dressed among the 3 of them. Madame Yang took out the embroidered handkerchief shakily and said, 30 copper coins. The boss was speechless. Although this embroidery was not bad, his eyes were sharp. With one look, he knew that it was done by someone new. It was not worth 30 copper coins at all. How about this? I'll give you a total of 30 copper coins for 2 handkerchiefs, okay? Madame Yang immediately took the handkerchief back with an unhappy expression. Seeing this, Xianxia quickly gave the boss a look. In a place where Madame Yang could not see, she secretly gave the boss 30 copper coins. The boss could also tell that Madame Yang was different from ordinary people. At first, he thought that this lady wanted to take advantage of him. He accepted Xianxia's 30 copper coins and immediately said to Madame Yang, "I was wrong. This handkerchief is 30 copper coins apiece. I'll pay you now." Chapter 4:10. Don't disclose your wealth, Snval. Madame Yang looked up and was indeed happy. She happily took the copper coins and counted them one by one. The boss didn't chase her away. He even thought that this person was quite interesting. It seemed that her family also indulged her. In this world, many people with bad brains were despised by their families. This madam was already very happy. Xianxia and Tong Shui Tao looked at each other and did not say anything. After Madame Yang finished counting, the three of them left the cloth shop. Unexpectedly, after walking out of the door, she saw Yongkang still standing there waiting for them. Xianxia said, "Uncle Jiang, you don't have to wait for us. It's not troublesome. It's still early anyway. How is it? Did it go smoothly?" "It went well. I have to thank Uncle Jiang. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have been able to find this shop." Yongkang waved his hand. "You're too kind. You even gave me a ride. Otherwise, I'd still be traveling and tiring myself to death. Where else do you want to go? I can take you there." Xianxia was about to refuse when Madame Yang said, "I want to buy something." "Buy what?" Yongkang treated her like a child. He was very patient with her and even smiled. Madame Yang counted with her fingers. "Pancakes, for Kiki. Brush holder, for Yunshu and Yuanji. Comb, and for Dong Dong. That's all." Tong Shui Tao choked. "But madam, you don't seem to have enough copper coins." Although these items could be bought at a stall, there were 2 brush holders among them. It was hard to say. 60 copper coins seemed to be a lot, but it was not enough to buy everything. Unexpectedly, Madame Yang raised her eyebrows proudly and suddenly took out a money bag. She shook it slightly. "I have it. There's silver inside." The few people standing beside her could clearly hear the sound of silver pieces swaying inside. Yongkang hurriedly said, "Quickly put away the money bag. Don't reveal your wealth, lest you're targeted." When Xianxia heard this, she immediately pressed down Madame Yang's hand and said, "Then let's go buy something first. We'll go back early after we're done?" "Okay." Madame Yang was very happy. Her money was naturally given to her by Gu Yundong. She would return what Gu Yundong gave her in the past and ask her daughter to keep it safe for her. However, ever since she returned from her trip, she would occasionally keep the silver behind. Actually, Madame Yang didn't know how much she needed. She felt that she had saved enough, so she wanted to buy things for the children. Now that Xianxia and Tong Shui Tao did not object, she should have enough money. She looked around the stalls by the roadside. The pastries and comb were easy to buy, and it didn't take long. Brush holders were different. Usually such things were sold in bookstores. Of course, there were also some in the stalls outside, but most of them were made of bamboo. They were not particular about carving skills, like bamboo joints placed there. Madame Yang didn't understand at first. When people said that this was a brush holder, she planned to pay for it. However, how could Xianxia and Tong Shui Tao allow her to be treated like a fool? They could just let Boss Tong cut her into 2 pieces of bamboo later. They asked Yongkang, who had been following them, and brought Madame Yang to the bookstore. Sure enough, she saw the brush holders in the bookstore that matched her thoughts. They were just expensive. In this day and age, scholars' things were expensive, but Madame Yang was very satisfied. She put everything away in a cloth bag and came out of the bookstore. "Let's go home. Dong Dong, Yunshu, Kiki, and Yuanji would definitely be very happy to see the gifts." Just as she was thinking this, Their path forward was suddenly blocked. Chapter 4:11. Call for help? Beat them up, Snvel. Madame Yang looked up and met a pair of greedy eyes. That person stared at Madame Yang's hand and smiled. She looks like a fat sheep. As soon as he said that, 4 or 5 people around him laughed. The few of them slowly approached them. Xianxia immediately shielded Madame Yang behind her and cursed in her heart. It seemed that these people had seen the money bag Madame Yang took out. As expected, one should not reveal their wealth. Yongkang took a step forward and made Xianxia retreat as well. He stood in front of the 3 women. I'm from town after all. I'll talk to them. His gaze became sharp as he met the eyes of those sloppy people. He said, You want to rob me in broad daylight? My home is in this town. There are many familiar families nearby. As long as I shout, everyone will come out to help me. At that time, I'll send you straight to the police office. You won't end well. The few of them looked at each other, but the leader looked unconvinced. Who are you trying to scare? I've been following you for a long time. I can tell at a glance that you're not from this town. Otherwise, why would you have to ask someone to find a bookstore? They're not, but I am. The leader sneered. All right, then shout. As he spoke, he rushed over. Yongkang was about to open his mouth when a gust of wind suddenly flashed behind him. He was stunned for a moment. When he took a closer look, he saw that Tong Shuitao had already stood in front of him. Miss Tong, don't be afraid. I can call for help. What are you calling for help? Just beat them up. Tong Shuitao grabbed the wrist that had rushed in front of her and bent it down fiercely. She kicked his stomach and directly sent him flying. The few people who rushed over from behind were stunned. They looked at this woman who was not even as tall as their shoulders in disbelief. However, Tong Shuitao did not give them a chance to react at all. They did not dare to attack, so she charged at them herself. She was strong to begin with. Now that she had learned from the bodyguard for a few days, the effect was immediate. The escort said that she was very talented. If not for the fact that she hadn't learned martial arts sooner, she might have become an expert. However, she was not bad now. At least, she was better than Mao and the others. She stimulated Mao and the others to train day and night. They were afraid that it would be too embarrassing for her to leave them far behind. Now that she was facing such lowly people, they were beaten up effortlessly. This was also the reason why Yundong was assured to let Madame Yang go out. With Tong Shuitao accompanying her, safety could be guaranteed in such a small town. Looking at the hooligans lying on the ground moaning, Tong Shuitao was disdainful. You're so weak that you're a burden to me even if I use you as sandbags. How dare you try to rob me? You woman! The gangster's hand was almost broken. He was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. Tong Shuitao pressed a foot on his chest. What do you want to say? Tell me, I'm listening. As she spoke, she exerted force. The hoodlum couldn't breathe, and his eyes began to turn white. Xianxia saw that there were more and more people watching the commotion and quickly pulled her back. Let's go. Your grandfather is waiting. Tong Shuitao nodded and ran to Madame Yang's side, looking like she was protecting her. Xianxia looked down at the person on the ground and secretly clicked her tongue. As expected of Yundong's disciple, the master and servant's personalities were becoming more and more similar. She shook her head and quickly followed Madame Yang. After walking for a while, she realized that Yongkang was not following them. Chapter 4:12. Like a mother's Nvel. Xianxia turned around and saw that the person was still dumbfounded. She turned back. Uncle Jiang. Yongkang suddenly came back to his senses and blinked blankly. What's wrong? Let's go back. Oh. Yongkang nodded and followed. After taking a few steps, he couldn't help but look back at the people who were still moaning on the ground. He had heard that Miss Gus' maidservant was very strong, but he did not expect her to be so strong. To think that he had been so eager to convince the other party just now so that he wouldn't suffer a loss. When they reached the carriage, they saw Father Tong waiting anxiously. When he saw them coming over, he asked curiously, What took you so long? I almost went to look for you. We bought some things. Xianxia did not mention that they had encountered hooligans, lest he worry. When Yongkang saw them get into the carriage, he said goodbye. You guys can go back. I'm going home with groceries too. Tong Shuitao asked him softly, Uncle Jiang, if you stay in this town, what if those hooligans find trouble with you again? Don't worry, I'll just stay at home for a day. I'll return to Yongfu village tomorrow. Besides, I've lived in town for so many years. I really know my neighbors. When the time comes, I can just shout and someone will help me. You guys can go back. Only then did Tong Shuitao relax and crawl back into the carriage. In the group, only Madame Yang's expression did not change much. After all, when they escaped from the famine back then, she had encountered many such robbers. Dong Dong could deal with them in a few moves. Dong Dong was not by her side today, and she panicked at first. However, when she saw Tong Shuitao attack, looking no different from Dong Dong, she was relieved. At this moment, she was still holding the few things she had just bought preciously. When she reached home, she did not see Gu Yundong. She only saw Gu Yunka pouncing at her. She could not wait to give her the pastry. Kiki, eat. The little girl was stunned for a moment, and her eyes lit up. Mother, did you buy it for me? Madame Yang nodded and held her hand as they walked in. Yunshu and Yuanji were indeed in the study, reading quietly and obediently. Madame Yang dug around in the bag and took out the brush holders. Here. The two little guys were stunned. They looked at the exquisite brush holders and could not recover for a moment. Madame Yang tilted her head and asked with a frown, You don't like it? I like it, of course I like it. The two of them hurriedly nodded and reached out to take the brush holders. Yunshi's eyes were a little red. He went over and hugged Madame Yang's waist. Mother, you're the best. He could feel that ever since his mother came back, her illness did not seem to be as serious as before. She was becoming more and more like a mother. Madame Yang chuckled and quickly let go of him to look for Gu Yundong. Only the comb was left. Coincidentally, Gu Yundong had just returned from the workshop. Everyone had come to work today, so she assigned the jobs first. She planned to arrange the work in the form of an assembly line. Each person would be in charge of a portion. This way, it would be more efficient and the method would not be leaked. However, just as she returned from her work, Tong Shuitao came over and told her about meeting hooligans in town. Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. Without another word, she immediately walked in. Worried, she went to look for Madame Yang to see if she was injured. Tong Shuitao opened her mouth. There was actually something she didn't say. Chapter 413. Warm and lively Znvel. Although 30 copper coins was not much for the current miss, it did not seem good for Miss Shen to give it to Madame for nothing. But on the way back, Xianxia reminded her not to tell anyone. She had been eating and living in the Gu house for so long, and Gu Yundong had only accepted a small amount of accommodation fees from her. She already felt bad. There was no need to mention the 30 copper coins. Although Tong Shuitao understood, she was still very conflicted. After all, she was the young Miss maidservant. No matter how small the matter was, she should tell the young miss. Over the past few days, she had been practicing martial arts at the Shao family's house. Her future master-in-law often reminded them of this. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao suddenly became determined and immediately ran in. Gu Yundong was holding the comb that Madame Yang had given her and smiling. She had naturally noticed the problem that Gu Yunshu had discovered long ago. Although Song Dajiang had not completely cured Madame Yang's situation was indeed developing in a good direction after the last treatment. Now, she actually knew how to buy gifts for everyone. Moreover, the gifts were considerate. She did not know how long her mother had been thinking about it. Gu Yundong cherished the comb and put it away. Only then did she look up and meet Madame Yang's gaze that was begging for praise. Did mother embroider the handkerchiefs just to buy these? Madame Yang nodded vigorously. I'm your mother. Gu Yundong held her hand. Yes, mother is great. You've worked so hard. I'll cook tonight and make delicious food for you, okay? Gu Yunka, who was offering a bite of the pastry to his brother, immediately turned around and ran over. I'll cook too. I know how to do it. And said that Kiki is very capable. Gu Yundong patted her head. All right, let's do it together. Ever since she bought the Tong family, almost every meal was cooked by the Tong family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Gu Yundong had not cooked for a long time. Since she was happy today, she washed her hands early and kneaded the dough. The little girl was also kneading the dough at the side and crushing the small doughs one by one. With the flour on her face, she looked exceptionally soft and cute. Her mother said that she wanted to eat dumplings, so they would make dumplings today. Although Gu Yunka didn't know how to make dumplings yet, she could still put the vegetables and meat into the covers. Not only did Gu Yundong prepare dumplings, but she also prepared noodles and Shao Qingyuan's favorite egg fried rice. Anyway, there were many people, so it would be lively to eat together. Tong Shui Tao had told Gu Yundong about the 30 copper coins, but she did not intend to return the money to Shen Citian if she could live comfortably in the Gu family. The whole family was bustling as if it was a festive occasion. Mao and the others had even drunk alcohol. When they returned, they were a little drunk. Therefore, they woke up late the next day and did not make it in time to practice martial arts. When they got up, the four of them trembled when they saw Shao Qingyuan's expressionless face. Fortunately, Tong Shui Tao came over to say that Big Chen and the others had returned and had even brought back 2 large carts of fruits. Mao and the others hurriedly jumped up and said that they wanted to make up for their mistakes and help unload the fruits. Shao Qingyuan snorted and didn't say anything, but he went to help himself. Big Chen and the others had indeed arrived at the entrance of the village. At this moment, many villagers had surrounded them. Looking at the large cart of loquats, they actually felt their mouths water and could not help but swallow their saliva. Some people who were rich couldn't help but want to buy some back. Big Chen was a little worried that these people would come and snatch the fruits. Shao Qingyuan and the others came over at this time. Tong Shui Tao ran straight to Boss Tong's side. Seeing that he was travel-worn, she said, "Father, you're back." Shao Qingyuan didn't see Lu Wei and asked Big Chen. Chapter 414. Sneakies and Vel. Unexpectedly, the corners of Big Chen's mouth twitched as he said, "Young Master Lu bought 2 big boxes himself and brought them home first." Shao Qingyuan was speechless. So this was the reason why he was so enthusiastic about collecting the fruits? Shaking his head, he asked Mao and the others to help push the fruits back. Tong Shui Tao was strong and immediately went to the head of the carriage. Unexpectedly, just as she walked around her father, she saw a few figures hiding not far away. She narrowed her eyes and almost cried out. Seeing that she did not move for a long time, Tong Ping could not help but push her. "What? You can't move it? Then let me tell you. You have to be careful of this carriage. Otherwise it will easily overturn. You're inexperienced, so give it to me." "No, father, I'm just..." Tong Shui Tao wanted to say something, but it was useless to tell her father about this. She simply let go and handed the carriage back to her father. Seeing Mao coming over to push the cart, she immediately said in a low voice, "Didn't I tell you yesterday that I met a few hooligans in town who wanted to rob Madam? I saw them again just now." Mao was shocked. "Where are they?" "They're over there. They're mixed in with the crowd. Do you think they wanted to take revenge, so they found out where our house is and want to take the opportunity to harm Madam? Do they dare?" Mao sneered. He thought for a moment and ran to Shao Qingyuan's side. "Young master, those bastards are over there. Can we teach them a lesson?" Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Yes, sure." Mao smiled. Very good. He had finally found a live target after practicing martial arts for so many days. He turned around and called Go over. He told Shu and Zhu to continue working. It was just teaching a few hooligans a lesson. He and Go were enough. However, Tong Shui Tao also wanted to follow them, afraid that they would attack the wrong person. Besides, she could actually handle it alone. She didn't need Mao and Go to follow her. Mao was still a little unconvinced. Why did she make it sound like they were stupid? The fruits were pulled away, and the villagers followed along. The hooligans in the crowd followed a few steps and walked in another direction when no one was paying attention. Mao and the other 2 snorted and followed behind silently. When they arrived at a remote and uninhabited place, the 3 of them instantly ran forward and surrounded them. The hooligans were still a little confused. They looked at Mao, who was standing at the front, In confusion, they frowned and shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to fight?" "What are you talking about?" Tong Shui Tao walked over from behind and looked at them with disdain. As soon as they saw her, the hooligans immediately understood, and a trace of fear flashed across their faces. The next moment, they turned around and ran. They were smart enough to split up out. However, Mao had brought a go along. 3 people against 6 people, 2 each. "Tell me, why did you come to our village? Are you trying to take revenge on me?" Tong Shui Tao asked. The hooligan leader shook his head like a rattle drum. No. We were just passing by." "Do you think you're a fool, or do you think we're fools?" Mao slapped his head hard. "Tell me the truth or I'll hit you. I really didn't want to take revenge. You guys are so powerful. Do we dare? We just saw that there were a lot of fruits shipped over and wanted to steal some." The others quickly nodded. Mao sneered. "If you want to steal the fruits, you should have followed the carriages. Why did you run out alone?" Tong Shui Tao said, "I think they're here to take revenge on us. When we left yesterday, you guys even glared at us. Your gazes were fierce. There must be a conspiracy. Then let's fight." Chapter 4:15. Someone instigated us Snvel. The few of them started beating the hooligans up without saying a word. They even specially hit the places that hurt. The few hooligans immediately wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. They covered their heads and fled. Stop, we really don't want to take revenge." No one listened, and they still attacked without hesitation. "We're here to find someone," Tong Shui Tao snorted coldly. "I know. You came to look for us, but you still said that you didn't come to find trouble with us? You were beaten up by me yesterday. Did you really want to get back and snatch some money back?" No. We didn't want to rob at all. We just took their money to put on a show. It was unknown which hooligan couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Shut up and stop talking nonsense." Tong Shui Tao, Mao and Go stopped what they were doing at the same time. They looked at the person who had let it slip. Their eyes were still glowing with danger. The hooligans immediately felt their hair stand on end, as if the 3 of them were much more terrifying than before. Mao covered the boss' mouth and dragged him to the side. Go and Tong Shui Tao blocked the rascal who had let the cat out of the bag and asked with a bloody expression, "You took someone's money and pretended to rob us, right? Tell me, who paid you?" The leader of the hooligans was whimpering when Mao punched him so hard that he vomited. This scene frightened the gangster so much that he didn't hesitate at all. He confessed while trembling, "It's that Jiang guy. The man who was with you yesterday, really. Otherwise, why would we come to Yongfu village? It's all because we were beaten up yesterday. In the end, we didn't see him at his house, so we came to Yongfu village to find him." Tong Shui Tao was stunned. She looked at the sincere hooligan in shock. "Are you serious?" "Yes, absolutely." That person nodded hurriedly. Tong Shui Tao frowned, feeling that it was unbelievable. Yongkang looked very refined. When he spoke to them, he had always been soft-spoken and patient. If they did not know his family situation, anyone who saw him for the first time would think that he was a scholar or a teacher. Although Tong Shui Tao did not like people who spoke gently, she still felt that the other party was a very good and friendly person. But now, someone was telling her that this person had colluded with hooligans to rob them? She looked at the hooligan. "Why would he do that? How would I know?" The hooligan wanted to cry. "He wants us to block your way and wait for him to call for help. Then we'll run away in fear. That's all." The cats and dogs looked at each other. Was he trying to save the damsel in distress? "3 heroes, I've said everything I know. Can you let us go?" "We really didn't want to take revenge on you. We can't take revenge on you all." After witnessing Tong Shui Tao's martial arts, no matter how ignorant they were, they wouldn't rush to find trouble. Wasn't this asking for death? Tong Shui Tao frowned and kicked his butt. Get lost. Don't let me see you again, or you'll be unlucky." The few of them hurriedly stood up and helped the boss, who had vomited until his face was pale, run away. "What does that Jiang guy mean?" Go asked. Mao didn't know either. He glanced in Yongkang's direction and said, "Let's go back first and ask Miss and young master how to deal with this." The two of them nodded and quickly ran towards the Gu family. Chapter 416. Why did you do this, Nvel? CM Gu Yundong was still in the workshop when the loquats arrived. Those things were not easy to keep fresh, so they had to be made into dried loquat sauce and canned loquats. The assignments of the workers had already been explained the day before. Now, everyone was in their positions. They washed the fruits, tore off the skins, removed the cores, dried them, and steamed them. Everyone was busy. The clay pots that Gu Yundong had asked Shao Qingyuan to order 2 days ago had arrived early this morning. There were already hundreds of clay pots. When the time came, these clay pots would be packed with gauze, grass cakes, bamboo leaves, mud, and other meticulous seals. They would be canned food in ancient times. She even got the family who made the clay pots to carve Gus at the bottom of the clay pot. She had specially asked Yun Shu to ask Qin Wenjing for the word Gus. The handwriting was strong and unique, so it was really difficult to fake. When she sold the cans later, she could still recycle the containers. She could get the customers to wash them clean and return them. Then, she could refund them for 5 copper coins or something. She had to use them sparingly. As she thought about it, she brought Tong in to look at them one by one. If she encountered any problems, she would stop and say a few words. The workshop was in full swing. Gu Yundong spent almost the entire day there. She wasn't the only one. Shao Qingyuan, Shu, Zhu, the Tong family, and Xianxia were all helping. It was almost evening before the group returned. Unexpectedly, as soon as they entered the house, Aunt Ke said, "Let's go to the central room first. Shui Tao has something to tell you." Gu Yundong was slightly taken aback. Seeing the serious look on Aunt Ke's face, she felt that it was not a small matter. "Why didn't she look for me at the workshop?" I stopped her. "It's your first day of work, so there are a lot of things to do. It's not a serious matter. If she meets you, it'll cause trouble for you. She can talk to you when you come back." "Why did you look like that if it wasn't something serious?" Gu Yundong was very puzzled. As soon as they entered the house, Tong Shui Tao immediately stood up. "Mississippi." Gu Yundong took the water from Shao Qingyuan and gulped down 2 mouthfuls before sitting down. "Tell me, what is it?" Tong Shui Tao told her everything in detail. Xianxia was the most surprised. She found it unbelievable. "Did Uncle Jiang really pay them?" Tong Shui Tao nodded, then felt a little vexed. "I was too shocked at that time, so I let those hooligans go. Aunt said that we should bring them back. That way, we will have witnesses." She was too impulsive. Mao and Go were also idiots. They had not thought of this. But why would he do that? Xianxia thought of Jiang Yongkang, who had been laughing and helping them enthusiastically yesterday. She felt that it was difficult to combine him with the person who had paid the hooligans to rob her. Gu Yundong frowned. Could it be that he saw that the Gu family is rich and deliberately acted this way so that we would be grateful to him? Does he have a favor to ask of us? It was not that she was narcissistic, but there were indeed many people eyeing the Gu family now. Gu Yundong had met many people who wanted to build a relationship with the Gu family, including the wealthy families in the county. Tong Shui Tao also felt that it was possible. Does he want to work in our workshop? But he's afraid that our family won't hire him, so he might as well use this method? Perhaps this way, he can become a small manager and earn more money, right? Aunt Ke couldn't help but roll her eyes. These two people were really... Can you guys think simpler? Can't it be because he took a fancy to someone? Chapter 417. Jiang Yongkang is here's Nvel. CM Gu Yundong and Tong Shui Tao looked up at the same time. Who is it? Aunt Ke pouted to the side. Everyone followed her gaze and looked at Xianxia. Xianxia was also stunned. She pointed at her nose. Me? How is that possible? Why not? Isn't saving a damsel in distress usually for the sake of the beauty? Think about it. Didn't he help you the last time by the river? He was also the one who pointed you in the right direction when you went to town to sell embroidery. He even accompanied you all the way to finish everything. Aunt Ke spoke with great experience. Xianxia still found it unbelievable. But Auntie and Shui Tao were with me yesterday. Why couldn't he have taken a fancy to them? Shui Tao is just a little girl who hasn't grown up yet. She's still heartless and slow when it comes to relationships. What Aunt Ke did not say was that she was now a servant. Even if Yongkang had taken a fancy to her, he should not have made his presence known in front of Gu Yundong. It was more appropriate to ask Gu Yundong for her. Tong Shui Tao was still a little unconvinced when she heard this. What did Aunt Ke mean by she hadn't grown up yet? She was even a year older than Mississippi. However, on second thought, it was better for her not to grow up if Yongkang might take a fancy to her. Aunt Ke continued, "As for your aunt, let's not talk about anything else. She's a married woman with children. Now, she's even more ignorant about relationships. Even if the hero who saves her in distress accidentally dies in front of her, she probably still doesn't understand what he wants to do." What he said made a lot of sense. However, Xianxia still felt that it was unlikely. But he already has a grandson. He's a generation older than me. For some reason, Xianxia felt a chill. Aunt Ke snorted coldly. It's precisely because he's old and feels that there's not much hope that he used such a method. She looked so confident that everyone actually thought that was the case. However, Xianxia wanted to cry. She had no feelings for Yongkang at all. "I still don't believe it. Why don't we go and ask?" "How?" Aunt Ke asked. Tong Shui Tao was eager to give it a try. "Let's fight it out. Let's not talk about anything else. Just yesterday, he colluded with a few hooligans to rob us. That's enough for us to come knocking on his door to reason with him." Her mother, Madame Jiang, couldn't help but reprimand her. "Don't mess around. Why are you shouting about beating and killing all day long now? You have to have a reason to come knocking on his door. You've let those hooligans go. What if he doesn't admit it?" Tong Shui Tao was a little depressed. Madame Jiang glared at her again. "Miss hasn't even said anything." Only then did everyone realize that Gu Yundong had been silent. Shao Qingyuan could not help but ask her, "What are you thinking about?" Gu Yundong pursed her lips. She was thinking about Aunt Ke's words. Actually, she had already found it strange when she saw Yongkang previously. According to Aunt Ke, before they returned to Yongfu village, she had only seen Yongkang twice in more than a month. However, they had only been back for a few days, but they bumped into him every other day. This was too frequent. Especially since the Gu family was at the foot of the mountain, and they had little contact with the other locals in the village. Moreover, he was very warm-hearted, and this warm-heartedness would not make people feel uncomfortable. It would make sense if he had taken a fancy to Xianxia. A thought suddenly flashed across Gu Yundong's mind, but it was too fast for her to grasp it. Just as she was about to think about it, a Mao ran in and said to everyone, "Yongkang is here. He's just outside the door. Miss, should we let him in?" Chapter 418. Apologize Nvel. CM Gu Yundong sat up straight. "Let him in." When Yongkang came over, Madame Jiang, who was a servant, brought Tong Shui Tao out. Only Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan, and Xianxia were left in the central room. Even Aunt Ke had left. When Yongkang came in, his face was ashen and he looked a little haggard. After he entered, he glanced at Xianxia, whose expression changed slightly and she clenched her fists tightly. "Sit." Gu Yundong pointed to a chair at the side. Yongkang smiled bitterly. She had stopped calling him Uncle Jiang. He lowered his head slightly, rubbed his hands and said uneasily, "I want sit. I came here today to apologize to Miss Shen." Xianxia's expression was tense, and her voice turned colder. "What are you trying to say?" "I know I did something wrong yesterday. I shouldn't have asked those hooligans to scare you. As he spoke, he paused and took a deep breath. "It's just that since the first time I saw you, I've liked you. I know that I'm letting my imagination run wild. I'm already so old and have children and grandchildren. You want like me. If I rashly propose marriage, I might be chased out. That's why I took a crooked path and thought of that method." Xianxia's expression turned even uglier. Looking at Yongkang at this moment, she inexplicably thought of Gu Gang. Even though Yongkang was much younger than Gu Gang, the feeling of being liked by her elders was simply terrible. As Yongkang spoke, he covered his face. After a while he said, "I'm too ashamed to see you again. I came here today to apologize to you. You can punish me however you want." He bowed deeply and stood there with his head lowered, looking like he was letting Xianxia hit and scold him. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and then at Xianxia. After all, this was her business and Yundong could not interfere too much. Xianxia only felt very annoyed. Her previous respect for Yongkang instantly disappeared. She stood up and said, "Please don't appear in front of me in the future." Yongkang looked up in shock. When he met Xianxia's rejecting gaze, his eyes darkened. After a long time he said in a hoarse voice, "Okay." Then, he apologized again, turned around, and strode away. However, Xianxia seemed to have run out of energy and fell back into her chair. "What's going on?" Antka came out of nowhere. She must have heard a lot. She walked to Xianxia's side and patted her shoulder. "You're good-looking and have a good personality. It's normal for someone to like you." It was just that this person was overestimating himself. He was simply a toad lusting after swan meat. How could a beautiful young lady take a fancy to an old uncle? "I just feel uncomfortable." "I feel uncomfortable all over," Xianxia said weakly. "Then why did you let him off so easily?" Yundong asked. "What else? Do you think I should beat him up?" She only wanted to draw the line between them quickly, and did not want to pester him at all. "Why not? It's good to kick him twice. It's not too much to teach him a lesson for what he did yesterday." Anyway, if it were her, Yundong would have wanted to hit him. She suddenly thought of Shao Qingyuan. She narrowed her eyes and turned to look at him. Shao Qingyuan had actually been looking at her. Whenever Yundong was present, his gaze was mostly on her. Therefore, when he saw her get up and go to the backyard, he followed her when no one was looking. Chapter 419. The two children want return to Days and Vel. As soon as they reached the backyard, he couldn't help but hold her hand. It seemed that ever since they held hands last time, Shao Qingyuan would always think of ways to hold her hand. Yundong looked down but did not take her hand back. She just glanced at him with a faint smile. "I suddenly remembered something." "What is it?" Shao Qingyuan felt that her small hand was especially smooth and tender. Holding it made him feel satisfied and he couldn't bear to part with it. "Tell me, did you also play some tricks? For example, 3 wild boars turned into 2. You clearly had money, but you didn't eat well or wear good clothes. Did you deliberately appear in front of me frequently?" Shao Qingyuan's face tightened, and he stopped kneading her hand. He looked up and met her raised eyebrows. His voice lowered slightly. "That was a legitimate, small trick. Yongkang's was illegitimate. I didn't expect you to be such a scheming man." The corners of Shao Qingyuan's mouth tightened. "You hate it." "Hate it? Not really." She was even a little happy. This man, who had tried all means to attract her attention, had actually satisfied her little vanity. Yundong, you're a white lotus who is so pretentious after taking advantage of him. I despise you 10,000 times. After despising herself, Yundong threw the thought aside. Shao Qingyuan acutely sensed the change in her emotions, especially when he saw the corners of her mouth curl up slightly. He suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. He held her hand tightly and pulled her into his arms. Yundong's nose was instantly filled with his scent. She heard his low voice. "I won't do anything that might hurt you." It was impossible to find some hooligans like Yongkang did to fulfill his dream of saving the damsel in distress. What if they scared her? Yundong's smile widened. Of course. Shao Qingyuan was many times better than Yongkang. Cough, cough. Suddenly, light coughs came from the side. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan turned around at the same time and saw Antka standing at the entrance of the courtyard with a look of disdain. "You're not married yet. Control yourselves." Shao Qingyuan was a little angry. He had only hugged her for a while. Gu Yundong suddenly hugged his waist tightly before letting go. Then, under Shao Qingyuan's smiling gaze, she looked at Aunt Ku and asked, "What's the matter?" Aunt Ku pointed at her and snorted. "Father Tong is back. He said that Yunshu and Yuanji won't be back today." "What is it?" "I think a classmate invited them over as guests. They'll stay for the night," Aunt Ku said. Actually, in the past 6 months, Yunshu has been to several of his classmates' houses. It's just that you hadn't returned yet.